Welcome to DAX Machina, with your hosts, Naomi Finn, Steve Wildman Munrotis, and D.A. Roberts. Join us as we explore writing, books, authors, and all things horror. We will delve into the sightings, reports, encounters, and tales of monsters. We will also explore the writings of D.A. Roberts along with others in the horror genre. We will investigate the possibilities that monsters may not be safely locked away in the pages of books. They might just walk among us even now. Grab some popcorn and lock the doors. It's going to be a creepy journey. Welcome to DAX Machina.
Good evening, folks. Surprise! It's a trick. Yeah, man. We pop out and go boo. We're happy to be here. Kind of surprise you guys tonight. We are doing a little impromptu show that we did want to announce. We still have the Halloween special planned for tomorrow night, but tonight we're going live a little early because in just a few minutes, Cam Buckner from Dixie Cryptids is going to be joining us, and we're going to be talking some creepy stories and all kinds of weirdness. And hopefully, you guys will be happy that you tuned in unexpectedly on a Saturday night. Naomi, how are you doing tonight?
I'm just this side of wonderful. And you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We just got back from Silver Dollar City, or as the locals call it, Steal Your Dollar City, and I bought a new hat.
Did anybody notice that he was not wearing his Kolchak hat tonight?
I'm not wearing the Kolchak hat. I'm wearing my leather cowboy hat that I just bought. My wife looked at it and went, she just rolled her eyes. She goes, "What did you need a leather cowboy hat for?" I said, "What did I not need a leather cowboy hat for?"
Makes perfect sense to me.
That's right.
If you're going to be in the cryptid community, you must have a leather cowboy hat. That's all there is to it.
I looked for the ones that had the really tight, like bent down, like Lyle and Ken have, but I couldn't find one. And I thought I probably shouldn't wear it anyway.
Yeah, I would, but sometimes I do stupid things. Anyway, story of my life.
Same here. Day late and a dollar short. Oh, we're getting a lot of comments tonight. Avery, the Big Belly Dinosaur says, finished Ragnarok Book 1 audiobook today. Who's working on number 2 of the series? My friend Allie is working on that. I will let you know when we get that closer to release. Northwoods Cryptid says, uh-oh, sounds like the police. Hi, Patty. Troy
Patty
says, awesome hat. Yeah, Patty's in the house.
Hey, hi,
Troy
Patty.
Says, awesome hat. Travis Trump says that hat looks great. D8, thanks, guys. I love hats. You guys know I like all kinds of goofy hats, but this one's going to be my my going into woods hunting cryptids hat because I wanted something that'll withstand a little bad weather, and my Kolchak hat's taken some abuse and it's just made of straw, so I'm afraid I'm going to destroy it out someplace. And that would just be tragic to destroy my Kolchak hat. So
that would be.
Kolchak hat is going to be saved for like doing the shows and shooting little videos around town and stuff like that. But this one's going to be the one I wear when I want to go out someplace where I got something that can take a beating.
Yeah, definitely that would be the woods.
Yes, definitely. Bill Sloan says, this is a great surprise. I was just sitting down with a Lakeview Man book. Well, awesome, man. Thank you. Travis Drum says, hello, everyone. Happy Halloween. I'm trying to scroll back a little bit.
Uh-oh, Dixie wants to know if he needs a link.
Oh, yes, he does. Sorry about that. I completely spaced out sending you the link.
We invited Camron Buckner from Dixie Cryptid to be on the show, but he's got to figure out his own way.
It's trick or treat. The trick is you got to figure out how to get in.
So, Cam, bring us a treat.
Heck yeah.
So that is too funny.
Yesterday, Annette decided we didn't have enough Halloween candy. So we go to Walmart, and of course, we can't be happy with 1 or 2 bags. On the average year, we get between 4 and 5 trick-or-treaters. We don't get a whole lot. So naturally she needed a shopping cart load of candy. I think we've got enough candy to give cavities to most of the 5th Army.
All right. I'll be over tomorrow.
Awesome. Come on over. We got plenty. She's going to be giving away some awesome candy. I mean, the 4 or 5 kids that show up are probably going to be struggling to carry the pumpkin when they leave. Chris Miller says, like the hat, DA. Thank you, sir. RJ says a reverse escape room. Northwood says, well, how big are the bags of candy? Well, she got the industrial size, like 55-gallon drum, need a dolly to take them to the van bags of candy. We got enough candy that she set it up on the table and the dog's looking at it like, what the hell is that? It's like a Foot Locker of candy.
Do you think each kid who comes will get their own bag of candy?
Are you kidding? Most every kid that comes is probably going to get his body weight in candy. Pick them up. You're about 30 pounds.
Oh, shoot.
Ranboo says, hey, how you doing? Northwood says, sound like a Sasquatch-sized bags of candy. Essentially, yes. The neighborhood parents are probably not going to like us very much because their kids are going to be so strung out on sugar they're going to crash and not come back for a week. Sal Passos says, I thought you're not going to have a show tonight. Yeah, that's the surprise. It's a whole trick-or-treat motif. And there he is. Cam Buckner in the house. Cam, how the heck are you doing, sir?
I'm all right. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Oh, man. My big old face. My face takes up like the whole screen.
Mine does too, but I have a tendency.
Head.
Well, I could shift it around. I mean, we can.
Oh, no. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. How about yourself?
I'm all right. I'm tired. I've been recording all day.
Cool.
Well, I saw you just released your own Halloween special. I'm looking forward to listening to later tonight.
Yeah, the Halloween videos don't do too good, but I love doing them. Actually, I've only done one. I did one in 2019. I didn't do one in 2018 because I had just started. I skipped 2020 because something was going on. And I'm out of work and I'm recording audiobooks and stuff like that. So I just kind of browsed around and found some stories and did an 1.5-hour podcast, and I just put it up today. So,
well, I will try to keep you busy if at all possible with audiobooks if you're wanting to.
Oh man, I'm deep into Odin's Call.
Can't wait.
I wanted to send you chapter 1 today. I sent you the prologue, but I don't know. I'm trying out a new mic here, and this is gonna sound horrible. This thing right here is supposed to be what do you call these things? It's like a puff shield. I can't remember.
Pop filter?
Yeah. And it came built in with this mic. It's a great mic. It's a real great mic. But I like to get up close to them because I don't know. In my head, I feel like I'm not getting enough volume if I'm too far away. And so I downloaded chapter 1 on my phone, and I just went and got I'm gonna leave this off because it's clunky. I went to get some Mexican for my wife and I was just listening to. I like to hear what it sounds like on a car and on a phone and on my computer and all the different devices I have. And I can hear a few of these little, and I have a pop filter on it that came with it, but it's not working. So what I'm going to have to do is try to edit those out because those are hard chapters to record. They're so long. So I'm gonna have to bring this mic up like this and put it to the side where my mouth is pointing not into the diaphragm. So anyway, that's pretty boring.
When I record, I actually have mine sitting on a stool right in front of me, and it's like right here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is what it is. But
so I think I can get. There's probably about a half a dozen. They're not real bad, DA. They're just kind of. You can hear them like on the car speaker. I can't hear them on my computer speaker, but I'll get them out. I'll get most of them out. But from chapter 2 on, you won't hear any of them. So,
well, I'm just looking forward to hearing them at all. I've been so excited to hear you narrate the books, and now it's finally coming true, and it's a pretty exciting time for me.
oh man, I have so much fun doing it. It's like it's relaxing. You get this sense of accomplishment, and you're working on something that I don't know. It's like there's a finished product that'll stay out there for a long time, and it's just a good feeling to do those, you know. And each one I do, I feel like I improve like in micro progressions, and I can hear it. And so maybe by the time I get to the end of yours, I'll be like, it'll sound like a real audiobook. So
I'm sure it's going to sound fine, and I know there's a lot of folks waiting to hear it. Avery, the Big Billy Dinosaur and Dad says, Cam, how is your cop story audiobook coming?
I just submitted it Friday. The author, Jack LaFountain, approved it later that night. I got an email the next morning. It's off to ACX, and it should be up next week. I mean, like 7 to 10 days. It takes ACX 7 to 10 days. So it's a good one. It's a good little book. It's a kind of a whodunit, and there's a rougarou involved, and you're kind of taken through this web of what's really going on here, you know. And then in the last 4 chapters, it starts to come together, and you're like, oh, okay. I read it back a year ago, and I've been under contract with him to do that since last April. Usually they give you about 30 days to do them. And he's been so nice to just say, because I've called him and I've said, look, I cannot get out from under this work, and I have to have no distractions to do this. And if you'd like to hire another narrator, there will be no hard feelings. As a matter of fact, I recommend you do it. He's been so good, and he's like, no, man, we want you to do it. Just take your time. No big deal. We know you're busy. Just so nice about it, you know. And
Well, that's awesome.
So anyway, that's why I was begging you, if you want me to do any others after Odin's Call, if you think it's good enough, don't send me a contract until I'm about halfway through with it, so I can get my my deadline date average up, because it's horrible right now.
Well, I've got to get a few of them ready in ACX anyway, because I've got some possibilities for the sci-fi as well. So I need to get a couple of things posted and done. I'll try to get that done later tonight, if at all possible.
As I record this Odin's Call, I can tell this is the kind of story that kind of fits my presence, you know, in the audio projects. It's really just pretty well suited for me. So if I can pronounce everything correctly.
Well, if you got any questions, just shoot me a message.
I will.
I remember the Project Lily. I'm Operation Lily.
Yeah,
I made the reference about the whiskey coming from the Irish word Uskabetha, and you just left that out.
yeah. If there's a word I can't pronounce and I'm in a hurry, I just skip it. Like there's one part in chapter 1 of Odin's Call. Mm-hmm. They do this, that cadence chant that the army guys do. I can't do that. I just left it out, and I'm sorry. And it's only like 3 or 4 lines. And
you mean the one where they go, "Here we come, just walking down the street"?
Yeah, something like that. I actually recorded it. I've been through chapter 1 twice, and so the first time I went through it, I had an audio issue, so I had to scrap that file, and I redid it today. But I recorded it the first time around, and I was listening through it, and I went, "Oh God, that sounds like shit. I can't do that. I'm not good at that, you know." And so so what I did was, Clark got a big grin on his face after he heard the chant that they were doing while they were doing their whatever. And so
that's hilarious.
Maybe I won't find too many things that I
so
So,
Gentlemen.
you guys want to do some creepy stories?
Sure. I would love to hear a few creepy stories.
Well, who would like to start?
Well, you heard me say here, right? I'd
There you
love to
go.
hear some creepy stories.
I thought you were volunteering to go first.
Oh, no. I said I would love to hear some creepy stories tonight.
Oh, would you now?
Oh,
Cam,
would.
would you
You
like to
got
go
one
first,
for
sir?
us? I'd like to know Cam's. Uh-oh.
We asked him about a creepy story, and he's like, "I'm out."
I was cutting my feet off while I spit this dip in this coat.
I love it. Cam, would you like to do some creepy stories?
He's like, yeah. And I'm out.
So what do you want me to do? You want me to read one? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
if you got one to
Wanna
read.
read one, go right ahead.
We're just kind of going off the cuff tonight. We don't know what the heck we're doing. And tonight
think
we're
I have
admitting to
one.
it. Normally we just don't.
Yeah, normally we just wing it.
Yeah.
Oh, I might could find one.
Northwood
I have,
says, hopefully no stories with spiders.
Yeah.
I
I'm
have
not
strict
big on
orders
spiders.
to be inside by 7:45. So let's see here. Okay. Well, that's kind of long.
Up to you.
That's too long. Let's see here. I actually wrote one the other day. I put on I got on this TikTok thing and I thought, I wonder if I could do TikToks with stories. And so I could never figure out how to get something, record on your phone while you're recording away from you and get decent audio. So I have these wireless headphones, and I figured it out and it works. The little TikToks are not very good, and I think I put it on Facebook. I think I put it on What If It's True too.
Yeah.
They're not very good. It kind of, my accent's like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, I don't like it, but okay, I've got one here I did like that. You want me to do this one?
Yes.
All right, this is a story a man sent me about a Balum. I think that's the way you pronounce it, but it's like a hoodoo type creature that's summoned up, and it's a Caribbean Creole, myth kind of thing. And so I'll just this won't take but just 3 minutes, but and I did the edit on it. But he says the Balum is the Creole monster. The Balum is a Creole monster folk tale. This monster is described as a short, stumpy human creature with long arms and incredible strength. You could own a voodoo Balum and use it against your enemies. Stories of Balums were common when I was young, but seem to be lost on the younger generation. But I know they still exist. The stories I heard as a child terrified me. A family moved into our neighborhood. They had a child they said was mentally off and stunted in growth. He was disfigured and aggressive and unpredictable. His hands and arms were oversized and long. There were no mental facilities on those tiny islands in those days, and no one could restrain him if he broke from the house. Eventually, the family was forced to chain him in a makeshift shed. There he lived from adolescence until now. To me, he was the Balum. He looked just like the Balum I'd heard in the tales. From the description in the stories, he sure looked and behaved like one. Through the years, many people were attacked and some killed on our island. Some women claimed they had been sexually assaulted by a short, ugly, very strong animal. No one was ever charged with the crimes. The mentally ill person chained in the shed was always on his chain when the authorities suspected he was the perpetrator. The family always had an alibi for the deformed humanoid. One night, I watched the shed for hours. I wanted to see him, to see if he got out. And I saw him climb out of a small window and run on four limbs into the grass behind the shed away from me. I stayed there for several hours and I waited for him to return. Later, I heard the grass crunch behind me and I quickly turned in terror. His nose was touching mine when he said, "The Balum goes where it is told to go, but the Balum can also choose who he tortures. Go home and never do this again." Through his jagged teeth and his breath reeked of human blood and rot. This boy was not mentally ill with birth defects. The Balum was real. I never went anywhere close to that shed again. 3 years later, I moved to the United States for school. I've never been back to my island. My family tells me the boy is still chained in the shed. He must be 80 years old now, but they say he remains the same, an adolescent, deformed boy chained in a shed. That's pretty creepy, isn't it?
That is pretty creepy.
Absolutely.
So that's up twice on the internet, and I love doing those. I like doing that. They're fun to do live too if they're short, So
now I'm all about learning more about the Balum.
Yeah, I need to look that one up.
my brother-in-law sent me. He saw the TikTok that I did, and he sent me some article on the Balum, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet. But it is a voodoo hoodoo kind of thing, and it's supposed to be a short, stocky. Like this long arm, huge hands and jagged teeth and dark hair. And I don't know, just like a little creepy boy or something. I don't know.
It doesn't sound like something I'd want to run into on a dark road.
All right, DA, you got to read one.
Well, instead of reading one, I thought I'd just tell one.
Okay.
And this one kind of goes back years and years. To a story I heard about a creature that is kind of old Ozark folklore called a Wampus cat. You guys know what that is?
Sadly,
it's like a giant version of a mountain lion with a terrifying scream. And when you actually look into the legends of the Wampus cat, it sounds an awful lot like the Ozarks howler. But the story that was relayed to me was back in the late 1950s. There was a young couple up near Warrensburg, Missouri, and being young teenagers much like teenagers today, teenagers back then were always looking for a place to be alone for some quiet time. Well, they drove one of the backcountry roads out behind Warrensburg, out near one of the wooded areas, not far from town, and as things were beginning to heat up between the two young lovebirds, they heard something in the distance that sounded almost like a woman screaming. So they stopped and listened, and they thought, what was that? And of course, them being more concerned with what was going on inside the car than outside the car, they went back to what they were doing. Well, pretty soon it happened again. This blood-curdling screech that shook the windows of the car, because this time it was much closer. So they're like wiping the fog off the inside of the windows, trying to look outside, and they hear it again. And this time it sounds like it's right outside the car. So they're diving back in the front seat of the car, trying to get it started, only the car won't start. Basically, what had happened is in his zeal to get the car started, he flooded it. So the thing screeches again, and this screech is like 1,000 screaming cats. It was so horrifying they could feel it not only in their bones, but it shook the inside of the car. Well, he puts the clutch in and lets the car start rolling, and it's not rolling really fast enough to pop the clutch and start it when something slams into the back of the car with enough force to break the back window out of the car. And they look back, and for the first time, they see the Wampus cat. And the Wampus cat's head is about 2.5 feet wide, and it's trying to get into the back of the car. Well, in it jumping on the back of the car, it accelerated the car. He pops the clutch in second, fires the car up, fishtails, and goes peeling out of there. Well, they make it back to town, absolutely terrified, and they stop at a local gas station to just calm down and before he takes the young lady home. Well, he gets out to check the damage to the car, and down the trunk deck are deep furrows all the way down to metal that went all the way from the back window to the edge of the trunk and down onto the bumper. It was deep. It was deep enough that the trunk had to be replaced, not sanded down. It was scored the metal so much it had to be replaced. They told their parents about it, and armed men went back out there. 2 of them went missing, but they never found the Wampus cat. And they say on certain nights outside of Warrensburg, Missouri, if you're driving some of those backcountry roads with your windows down, in the distance you can hear the Wampus cat. And if you stop long enough, you'll hear the screeching of the metal on the back of your car.
Oh man.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes.
I like that one.
Neil, I believe it's your turn.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Drawing a blank on us?
Well, I have one that I was going to say. I had 2 that I was going to tell tomorrow night, but
Save them.
Yeah. Well, you got another one then, Cam?
Mark Napier says Eastern Kentucky and Western Virginia hill folk sometimes call the Bigfoot the Wampus cat or boogers. I did not know that. My father-in-law, before he passed away, told me a story about hearing the Wampus cat one time when he was hunting. And I just thought that was an Ozarks legend. I didn't know it was something that people talked about from outside the Ozarks.
Yeah, that's sort of like Bloody Bones and Rawhead.
Mm-hmm.
People in the Ozarks think that's an Ozark legend. People in the Appalachians think it's an Appalachian legend, and people in England think it's an English legend. But yeah, I had 2 that I wanted to share, but I really I will tell you, this isn't really a scary story, but have you ever noticed how pretty much every small town in America, even if it's just a crossroads story, has, I think I've got kicked back. They have, even if it's just a crossroads, you're gonna find a post office on one corner, a bar on the next, a church on the next, and a gas station on the next. It's like that's just the way it is. Every small town in the world has at least a post office, one bar, one church, and one gathering spot. And years ago, we were visiting in the fall up where I'm from. They have a thing called the Spoon River Drive. And we were in one particular small town, and I don't remember the name of it anymore. But I noticed that the one thing that town did not have was a church. Where you would have thought there was a church, there was this big red barn. It was big, and it wasn't recently painted. It looked pretty old and worn out. And it just, the thing that I remember is that a lot of the people were dressed in, they were Civil War reenactors. And apparently they were going in and out of that barn to get ready for their reenactment or whatever. But I will never forget, every single person when they walked out of that barn had the deadest black eyes I've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember telling my son finally, I said, we're leaving. I never had such a creepy feeling as I have here today. And we left. And the one thing that I kept thinking or remembering was, there's no church in that town. What religion are these people practicing that they're doing it in a barn?
Yeah, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen church. Were you done?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's
I
right.
have this bad habit of interrupting people. But
I do too.
There's some church services that aren't even meant to be evil or weird looking, but they wind up like being so creepy. It's like,
Yeah.
The
and
ones
they're
that freak me out are the snake handlers.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
and all
Where
that
does
jumping
that get
around
from?
and stuff people do. What in the world is that?
Yeah, I'm going to take a big pass on that.
I can tell you right now, I am not good enough. That snake bites me, I will die. I
Yeah,
don't
people
need
that
to
do it,
prove that to
snake bites
anybody.
them and they die.
My soul is marred. But yeah, I wish that, I mean, the two stories that keep coming to my mind, I really don't want to share them tonight because I'm not a real good storyteller. I am a good story reader, and I can pretty much tell either of these two stories. My computer's been having issues, and I'm afraid to try to bring something up to read it because, as we all discovered on Wednesday, that means that I don't get to stay on the show.
Hey, you
And
all excuse me for 1 second.
sure.
Just carry on, carry on.
Okay, carrying on right now. Um, but they're both stories that I could probably tell without too much of an issue. But hi, Tim and Irene and
A lot of people saying
Lanita.
howdy.
Yeah, howdy, folks.
Tim says just got in from trick or treat.
Woohoo!
That sounds like a lot of fun. Should have come by my house. My wife bought enough candy to hand it out to, I think, everybody in the state of Missouri twice.
Oh, that's just too funny. So, do you got another one for us, DA?
I sure do. Well, let me answer my son real quick.
Okay. I'll entertain the folks while you're doing that.
He was trying to call me on Facebook Messenger, and I'm like, I can't talk right now.
Oh, that's so funny.
I was kind of trying to wait for Cam to get back for this one because I think he'd get a kick out of it. This one actually happened. I mean, it's creepy.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to this. Did it happen to you?
Yes,
Cool.
yes, it did.
Well, I guess I could tell a story about some urban exploring I've done.
That's always
That's-
cool.
Had some pretty
Cam, you
weird things
back?
happen.
Yeah, something was out messing with my chickens, actually, and I went out to see what it was, but
Was it tall and hairy?
I don't know.
Bucker?
Y'all are talking about personal stories that, strange things that have happened to you.
Mhm.
I've never have anything happen to me. Nothing ever.
Not even UFO related?
Well, I've had a couple of those, and I've talked about those in podcasts before. But
Those are always creepy.
what's that?
I said those are always creepy.
Oh man,
You
I'll
should
tell you
share one
this.
tonight.
I'll tell you this. Kerry Arnold is working on his huge documentary, and Naomi and I actually met at a campsite with a bunch of people a couple 3 weeks ago, and I took my little podcast machine, and I have a story. I've done all of them but one, and I'm holding the last one until Kerry puts his documentary out because I don't want to. Hey, Lanita, there's my buddy Lanita. How you doing, girl? Anyway, that they saw something that I think is UFO related, and they saw it night after night. Were you there to hear that story?
We'd
Naomi?
already left, so I didn't get to hear it. I wish I had, though.
Well, you're going to get to hear it in the podcast. If Carrie will hurry up and get his documentary out, I may call him and ask him if I can go ahead and do it because they've talked about it on their show, Mark Newble and Larry Porch, but Mark Newble and Barry Browning were in another area at night, listening for sounds, whatever they do, whatever the Bigfoot people do. And they see these things in the woods and overhead over the woods, and they film it. And they see it for 3 or 4 nights in a row in the same place doing the same thing. And several, I don't know how many people were on this thing, but a half a dozen people came the next night, saw the same thing. And I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You actually saw it. You confirmed it night after night with other witnesses. And you're making a Bigfoot documentary? You got this, and you're making, this is the story. I'm like, hey, dude, this is the story. What are you talking about? And they're like, it's not our documentary. And they're right. And Carrie is devoted to his Bigfoot research. And, you know, his mantra is, I do this to promote awareness. That's what I'm doing. And so it is his documentary and he can do what he wants. But here's the thing. I told them, I said, Bigfoot's kind of interesting to me, but it's not interesting enough for me to go spend weekends out, spend a lot of money and, you know, valuable time that I consider valuable doing that. I think I love that those people do it because that's what they like to do. I do what I like to do. They do what they like to do. So I'm not being critical. But what I'm saying for me is I wouldn't do that. However, if I saw what they saw, I would move to that place. I would go buy a camper and I would haul it down there and stay. Because to me, the UFO thing is the most... it doesn't scare me. It doesn't make me nervous. It doesn't. I would love a spaceship to just, you know, hover right above me and take me up in it if they want to. That's how intriguing that is to me. And so
you say that up until the probing begins.
Yeah.
They don't give you flowers first, and they don't buy you dinner.
Well, you get the point, though. You understand what I'm saying. Excuse me, but it's like, dang. And the two events in my life were, a lot of people think it was a UFO thing, and a lot of people going, it was this or this or this, and I don't really know. But at the time, I was pretty sure I was seeing, like, not just a little light flying across the sky, but these were giant lights behind clouds, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know that scene where the UFOs are coming in behind those boiling clouds to get that little boy in that field way out in the country? It looked real similar to that, except they were moving in a straight line and they were moving really slow, much slower than a jet. They were just like just hovering, you know. And there was an area above me where stars were blacked out, but lights were in front of it. But I couldn't make out a shape. I could just see the lights. And then all of a sudden the lights just, they flipped straight up in the air and they look like those big spotlights that, you know, that go around cities where that promotional lights and all. They weren't doing that. They were just poking straight up in there. And then they went straight back down, pointing forward, and that thing moved on. And it was like, I think I was 15 years old at the time. I'm sorry to keep talking.
Oh, no, you're fine.
No,
you're
that's
absolutely fine.
Anyway, what's
I actually had a couple. I've had a couple of times in my life where I think I saw UFOs.
Let's hear it.
But, I think that DA has a story he wants to share.
I wasn't in any rush. If you want to go right ahead, you go right ahead.
Well, my 2 UFO sightings are really, really super, super short. I was about 4 years old, and where I lived, we lived at the top of a really big, steep hill. You went 20 feet out my back door, and the hill just went down. It was the best hill, the sled riding hill in probably all of the state of Illinois. And and we owned it. Yeah. But I remember the sun was going down. I can remember seeing the sun. It was at that point where you could look at the sun. It was still visible, but you could look at it without hurting your eyes. It kind of turned that kind of cool pinkish color. And I remember running between the houses and going to the top of the hill and seeing the sun sitting directly in front of me, which is kind of odd because the back of our house faced north. But it was hanging directly in front of me. at eye level out in the hill, just straight out from me from the hill. And then I looked over to the west and I could see the sun setting. So there were two suns.
Well, that's
And I remember being really, freaked out by that. And I do think my dad later told me that it was a weather balloon. But what my dad couldn't explain was in the time it took me to turn around and run back to the front of the house where my parents were sitting out talking with the neighbors, the sun had set and about 2 hours had passed. And it should have only taken about 30 seconds, but there was no sun at all by the time I got to the front yard. And it was just sort of one of those things where I spun around and I felt dizzy for a second and it was nighttime. And then the other one, and it was also even more brief, I was driving, and it was just about 4 or 5 years ago. I was driving into work. I live on the north side of Nashville, and I was driving, and I worked on the west side, and I was driving in, and I live far enough out of Nashville that I get a full city line view as I was driving in. And the most beautiful sort of teal green light with kind of like yellowish sparks, not sparks like it was flaming out, but like a yellowish glow around it type thing. Floated across the sky. Anybody that knows the Nashville skyline knows the Batman building. And it floated across over the Batman building, kind of came back around. It kind of looked like it might have done sort of a circular come. And then it came back around again, and then it went down over the horizon. It didn't move in a straight linear line. It was actually coming at an angle to begin with, but it got over the Batman building and kind of did a loop around. And then when it got back this way, it went straight back across and then down over the horizon. And I got to work, and I immediately started Googling to see if anybody else had seen anything. And I Googled it for months, like almost daily for months, and no one else ever reported it. So I don't know what it was. And that's my two UFO stories. Next.
Those are pretty wild.
Hey guys, I promised my wife I would be in by 7:45.
Yeah.
I'm gonna peel out of here. I hate to
All
be
right.
a
Well,
party pooper.
well, thank you for coming, sir. It's much appreciated.
All right. Good luck on your live stream tomorrow night.
Thank you, sir.
I'd love to do it. I just have too many things going on, so hope you understand.
We understand completely.
You guys are too much fun to actually let me talk. That's all right. Thanks for having me, and
Hey,
good
anytime.
night to the audience. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to go hang out with my lady. We're going to watch. Hey, we're going to see tomorrow afternoon. We're going to a matinee. We're going to go see Antlers, the Wendigo movie.
Ooh,
Oh,
Brand
should
new
be good.
movie out. I've been dying to go see it. So I'll give you a report on it when we next week, let you know how it is.
I definitely want
Cool.
to see it.
All right. You guys have a good one. How do I
just click on the little X at the top of the screen, but tell her I said hello.
I sure will. I will.
Tell her I
Sure.
said good night. Thank you,
Yeah,
and thanks
I
for
think I
sharing.
owe
Yeah.
her. I think I owe her a phone call. I just have been so busy, I haven't had time.
Oh, no big deal. We're always here. And she could call you, so you know how that
Yeah,
goes.
but she's probably pretty busy too.
She's
So.
hey, we thought we had COVID this week. My granddaughter has it, and we think all the children in that household have it. And
Oh,
we had
no.
them all last weekend, and so we've been kind of worried about it. But neither one of us have shown any symptoms. So I'm hoping I got it and I didn't get sick. That's what I'm hoping, but we'll see.
Well, if you get your nose probed, remember it'll be a lot worse on a spaceship.
All
I
right.
use a
I
much
agree.
bigger
That's
probe.
And they go in a different orifice.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Hey, anytime,
Thanks
sir.
for
Thanks for
coming.
coming.
All right, see you guys.
Cam, you have a
Bye-bye.
good night.
Bye.
Okay, well, DA, you want to tell your story?
Sure. I don't know how many y'all are familiar with the Ozarks, but now down near the Arkansas Missouri border, down near the boot heel of Missouri is a little town called Hardy, Arkansas. And it's not much of a town. It's maybe 700 people. Well, and that's an outside guess. It's not very big, but it's on the road from between Springfield and Jonesboro, Arkansas. And at the time when my wife and I had first gotten married, we had quite a few friends that lived in Jonesboro, and we'd go down to visit them from time to time. Well, we would drive through this little town of Hardy, Arkansas, and it was kind of a neat little town. I mean, just wasn't a big place. It was kind of a nice little town. It was one of those places that just looked really open and inviting. But we drove down every time we'd been through Hardy, it had been daylight. So we went down and visited some friends, and we were driving back during the night, and the entire town had just a completely different feel. It was like when the sun went down, as the old expression, they roll up the sidewalks. This town went from being this picturesque little town to being like straight out of a horror novel. I mean, it was creepy as hell at night. And I couldn't figure it out. I mean, it was like somebody flipped a switch, like one of those old Scooby-Doo cartoons where they pull the lever and everything switches around and it's suddenly a different place. But there was one particular house, and it was a good sized house, had a big balcony up on the top, facing the front, facing the road. And the yard was always needing mowed, and the house looked like it hadn't been lived in years. And I actually stopped and took some pictures of it at one point. This was back in the days before cell phones. I don't know if I even still have the photos, because I had to get them developed at the time. Because I just thought it was a neat little setting. It would make a great setting for a horror story. Well, again, we didn't think too much other than the town was just really creepy after dark. Well, not too long after that, I made the trip alone. And I was going down to Jonesboro to pick up some stuff from a buddy of mine, and just coming back in our little pickup. And Annette had stayed at her mom's house. And I got to town just about dusk. Sun was just starting to go down. And I pulled off to the side of the road by that little creepy house, and I wanted to get a better look at it. And the sun's going steadily down, and I'm just kind of looking at that. And I've already noticed there's no, and that's the weird part about the town. After dark, there's no movement. I mean, people got curtains over the windows. You don't see people out on the street. All the businesses are closed. There's nobody moving in this town after dark. So again, it's almost, the sun's about to go down. I stopped, and I'm kind of looking at that house, just kind of pulled off to the road, not really paying any attention. And I look up, and I don't know what county in Arkansas that is. I'd have to look it up. Deputy sheriff pulls up next to me, and I roll my window down, and he says, "Help you with something?" And I said, "No, I was just kind of checking out this old house." I said, "I'm wondering if it's for sale." He goes, "I don't know if it's for sale or not." He says, "But I don't know, I don't figure you live around here, do you?" I said, "No, sir." He says, "Yeah, I saw the Missouri plate. You probably don't want to be here when the sun goes all the way down. You have a good day, sir." And he drove off. And I was like, I need to get the hell out of this little town. And ever since then, we drive through little town of Hardy, Arkansas. Even in the day, I just get the weirdest feeling like I don't belong there. Isn't that just the strangest thing? I mean, broad daylight, when the town is open and bustling as a town that size gets, it just doesn't even feel like the same town anymore. I drive through it, and I just don't feel welcome. Like, don't stop.
Wow.
And that's a place I drove through, dozens of times, and never really put too much thought into it until that one deputy sheriff's like, "You probably don't want to be here when the sun goes down." And he just drove right on through town and got out of there.
Wow. That is crazy.
And it's really a creepy little town. I don't know what's going on, what the secret of that little town is, but there's something sinister going on in that little town, Hardy, Arkansas.
Wow. Anybody from Hardy out there that can tell us?
Northwoods Cryptid says, when a cop tells you it's a good idea, it's a good idea to listen. Yeah. And I did. Yeah, I haven't stopped since.
Yeah. I
RJ says 600 people. Creeps. That's a city.
Yeah, I was. I didn't know that most Caucasians don't teach this to their children, but I certainly did mine. I have the put your hands on the wheel, move slowly, inform the officer what you're doing before you do it. Smile, say yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, and no, sir, and no, ma'am. And anything that they say to do, you just smile and say, okay, I will.
That's right. Lenita, thank you. Well, I love this hat. RJ says, I tie fishing flies out all the hairs from native critters. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Avery, the big belly dinosaur, and Dad says I wasn't leaving anything for the big guy that was in front of my car in Jasper. He can get his own food.
You know, there was an abandoned house not far from where my grandparents' house was, and they live in a place called Big Island, which is not really an island, but it's what if you know where the Rock River flows into the Mississippi in Illinois, that is that little peninsula there is what forms Big Island. And there's part of the island is inhabited and part of it is just swamps, whatever they call that in the north. But there was this old abandoned farmhouse that sat off sort of by the swamps alone. And I used to go there and play. I considered it my dollhouse when I was a little kid. And my grandmother would always scream at me and tell me, you stay off that side of the island. There's a wild man that lives over there. He'll get you if you stay over there and play. You stay off that side of the island. And I'd be like, okay, Mama. And off I'd go. And I remember going there one time and I remember walking in. And it's such a vague memory, but there's one moment of it that is so clear in my mind. Was the silhouette as I went up the stairs. There was a huge wide front porch and the front door was of course not on it. There was no front door. And I went through, it was a front hallway, the stairs, and then off to the left was what would have apparently been the sitting room. And there was a corner fireplace. Mm-hmm. And I remember running through that door and heading straight to that sitting room. And as I stepped into the doorway, a big arched doorway, there was what I remember to be a very tall silhouette of a man standing in front of that fireplace with his back to me. And then the next thing I remember, I was running into my grandma's yard, probably a quarter of a mile away. I remember vaguely that he was starting to turn when I lose all memory of the situation, but I used to I think even, and I was probably about 6 or 7 then, I've always been one to go into those old worn out houses. And my kids got that from me. And there was another old house that was far from where our farm was. And they were like, oh, you got to come see this. And the thing that was really interesting about that was, we went in and it had been abandoned for many, many years. And there were a lot of things that were just really not, you could tell it wasn't safe there was no way we were going to go down the basement because the basement stairs probably would have collapsed under us. And, but the stairs going to the second floor seemed safe enough. I remember thinking it was better to step over a few of them, which we did, but we got up to the upstairs floor. And there was one bedroom that had a dress hanging in it, a pristine, perfectly cleaned, undamaged in any way, shape, form, or fashion, little girl's white dress hanging.
Weren't tempted to take it home and try it on?
I wasn't going to touch it. There wasn't a stain. There was no age, no wear, nothing. This looked like somebody had washed that dress and hung it up that day.
Wow.
And it was hung over there was you know how houses have especially the old ones where they have the hooks where you can, coming out of the wall where you can hang things. And it was hanging on a hanger from a hook on the wall. And I
That's
thought,
bizarre.
I'm not even going to touch that dress.
Heck
So
no.
we left. And the other thing is, my daughter, who she's not really my daughter, but I tend to call her that. She's the daughter of my heart. She went into another room and she picked up a newspaper that had her birthday, the exact day. The newspaper was dated the exact day of her birth, which is just a very odd coincidence that that newspaper happened to be laying there when she picked it up to read it. It was the newspaper from the day she was born. But we went. We left, and of course, and we talked about it, and we decided we would go back and give that dress a little bit more of a once over.
Mm-hmm.
So we went back and we went up the stairs and in the room, and that dress wasn't there.
They put it there for you the first time. They weren't offering a second time.
Well, I'd like to think that somebody else came and did what I didn't have the nerve to do, but it wasn't there the second time.
Maybe. Mark Napier says, "Call me rebellious, but it would have made me want to know what was going on there." I think he's referring to little Hardy, Arkansas. I am curious. I am very curious, but when the sun goes down, I am also not stupid. And having been thusly warned by a deputy from the area that I probably didn't want to hang around once the sun went down, I took his warning to heart, and I haven't gone back. I mean, I've driven through it, but I haven't stopped.
Hardy is right between Har and Har, isn't it?
Hardy Har.
Yeah, you take the Hardy Har Har road.
Yes. This is the chemical formula for laughter. RDR squared.
Yeah, there you go.
RJ says that's creepy, Naoma.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty creepy.
Anita says, I love to explore old vacant houses.
Me too. And in hospitals and morgues and anything that's vacant that I can get in a window, I will. Someday I'm going to be arrested for that.
It's called trespassing.
Yeah. They take a dim view of that.
Evening, Josh. Northwood Cryptid says, I scared my niece's kids when the family was gathered at my mom and dad's place. I told them there was a monster in the front bedroom upstairs. That sounds like something I would do.
Yeah.
Mrs. Chef Yoda says, I tried to post a link, but didn't see it come up in the chat. I don't think I saw it either.
Yeah. Was it a link about Hardy?
Huh, maybe.
Yeah.
Hector Larios, good evening, folks. Thank you for joining us, sir.
So,
RJ says, hey, General.
So, details.
About Little Hardy Town? I don't know much about it. I mean, I didn't really poke around too much, and I haven't been back. I ought to go down there and do some filming, but I'm telling you, that town has a whole different demeanor when the sun goes down. I've driven through it in the daylight and the dark, and it is not the same town when you go through it at night.
Ooh, they do have a big population there, 772 people.
Woo-hoo. I told you it wasn't a very big place. It's what we call in Missouri a poking plum town. You poke your head out the window and you're plumb through it.
Let me see.
Northwood says my daughter had to take them all upstairs to show them the little cookie monster sitting on a shelf.
That's funny.
Keith Van Rensler says, I could tell you a pretty wild story about checking out an abandoned house. I wrote a short story about a time me and a buddy of mine checked out an abandoned house. Naoma narrated it on What If It's True. It's that is a dramatized version of what happened, but that's a true story. We did find something, and it did chase us out of the woods. But
I think Cam actually narrated that one. I think I did
right.
The other two.
The House in the Woods. The story is called The House in the Woods. I need to release that again in another short story compilation. But that's based on real events that happened to me and my buddy Chris back in about 1985, I think it was. And I've never gone back in that section of woods. I've never even considered going back with better guns.
There's a cemetery. Well, there's a couple of them where I'm from. One of them that's really cool is you turn into the main gate and it goes back a little bit, and then there's like a big circle, and around this circle, sort of, what are those types of circles called in driving? Off of there are three. So if you were looking down on the cemetery, there would be a circle in the middle, and then there would be 4 roads, one leading out. Actually, there's other minor exits too, but the 4 main roads of the cemetery. And as you're pulling into the cemetery at night, there's a crucifix, and it's probably about 8 or 9 feet off the ground. It's pretty high up, and it's the crucifix itself is that tall. I mean, it sits up on a pedestal, but it may even be about 10 feet. But when the headlights hit that thing just right, the rust on the nails that they put in the palms has run off of the go this way, and it looks like blood running down its palms, and the same on his feet. And apparently there is also metal in the crown of thorns that they did, because there's rust running off of that too. And it was always really fun to take our friends there, and you go in and you go with your running lights on, and then when you get close enough, you hit the headlights and it lights up that crucifix, and it is just,
What do they call that? Stigmata?
Yeah, except that it's happening on a statue, not a person. But one time I decided I was going to take some of my friends there and, kind of do the pull in with the lights on low and then light it bright and freak them out. And I kid you not, the eyes on this statue went from this to this and looked right at me. And I turned that car into reverse and backed right back out of there. I was done. I was like, okay, I've never seen the eyes do that before, but the eyes went from looking up to looking right at us.
Mrs. Chef Yoda, I guess she looked it up. She says there's nothing extraordinary involving Hardy, Arkansas during the day, but this city is run by tormented ghosts of the past.
There's this one story about Hardy that I do remember reading about, how when people pull over, a ghost cop comes up to the door window. Knocks on it, says, "You don't need to be here after dark."
Kick rocks, fat man.
Yeah.
Northwood says, one of the first Halloweens in that house, my dad made a cardboard cutout of a guy hanging from a noose and hung it behind a shade in that upstairs bedroom window with a work light shining on it. Surprised you didn't get the cops called on you.
Oh, I love it.
Mrs. Chef Yoda says, a few stories from MainStreetHardy.com. Oh,
okay.
I didn't even know that little town had a website, much less the internet. It seems like something frozen out of time when you drive through it.
I think I'm just going to scope.
Hardy, Arkansas, Ghost Tales.
All right.
Well, I am glad I'm not the only one that noticed that town was creepy as hell.
Wow.
So now, that story's not just me blowing smoke, folks. There's a website to back it up. Hardy is a creepy little town.
Definitely. I'm trying to find the ghost stories, but
if there's some good ghost stories, we should read a couple of those.
Yeah, I will.
Folks, if you're enjoying the show tonight, hit that like and subscribe button. Share the show often. Let's try to get the name out there as far as we can. You guys will also notice that if you're in the YouTube channel, you'll see that little super chat down there. You guys check that out. We appreciate you guys helping out the channel, and all that goes right back into helping us get gear and go research stories and do all kinds of crazy stuff that'll help keep the channel growing and keep us full of mischief and strange things to talk about.
I want to read this. It says, bring it up big so I can see it with these old eyes. Again, Hardy, Arkansas Ghost Tales. Again, these are just ghost tales, or are they? There's nothing extraordinary involving Hardy, Arkansas during the day, but the city is run by tormented ghosts of the past. Some of the departed refuse to stay underground in this settlement. Folks who have never spent the night in the settlement will inform you it's a pack of lies. but there truly are chilling things going down here in Hardy during the night. These are some of the spooky things that have happened here recently. A lady with her head and left arm and right leg separated was repeatedly seen rummaging around in trash cans on a Hardy street. A military uniform marching about lacking a body in it may regularly be made out by Lake Aztec Dam on a dark night gazing at the water. The ghost of a Civil War combatant has sometimes been made out throwing rocks into Lake Aztec in the early morning hours before sunrise. One of the folks who live here confidently alleges that this phantom enjoys frightening foolish folks who come seeking phantoms in Hardy. Oh, DA, we got to make a road trip.
I told you, that's a creepy little town.
The ghost of a dreadfully charred woman has supposedly been spotted on a handful of instances on a Hardy residential street at midnight. A number of folks declare this ghost may very well be a well-known old days dweller of Hardy. The phantom of a gentleman having satanic symbols carved into his cheek may, every now and then, be made out on the pinnacle of Biggers Hill at midnight studying the surroundings. It's been alleged that this exact ghost is the undeceased soul of a long-gone Hardy local resident. The ghost of an appallingly mangled hunter dragging a dead cougar has often been made out floating in the air like a blimp in Hardy. If you talk to the folks who live here, this ghost is the ghost of a vacationer that was killed while passing through Hardy some time ago. No matter what people state, this spirit indisputably is menacing, one that is rather not messed with. The ghost of a young-looking female with a line around her neck is frequently seen in Hallow before dawn mounding chunks of concrete. If you listen to what the local residents declare, this ghost is that of a local resident who lived here in Hardy in the past. Well, it's a creepy phantom that you wouldn't wish to run into late at night. There you go, folks. When we going?
We need to plan one. That'd be a good place to film. It sounds like the place is just as creepy as LBL.
Yes.
I told you it freaked me out. And then getting a deputy sheriff saying you probably don't want to stick around here when the sun goes down. Yeah, that just added to it. I'm like, you know what? He's probably correct.
I just posted the entire URL, including the ghost tales.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Or there I don't know, I'm trying to spit it out, Porky. That's all, folks. Just some of those stories right there. Yeah. Where's the kaboom? There's supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom. I'd like to go out there and see if we can spot that Civil War ghost.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That sounds like a cool place to go paranormal hunting.
Most definitely.
You know, the more we dig, the more weird places we find. And I've known about Hardy for a while. I just never knew that it had like its own website and ghost stories galore. I just had my own weird experience there and never stuck around to find out more.
I wonder if I can find anything that gives more detail on each of those ghosts.
I bet there are. There may be whole bits of lore out there on it.
I would think there must be. But I also need to dig to see how many ghost hunters go there and never come back.
That's probably a good statistic to know.
Yeah.
But you know, I feel strangely vindicated now that I know I'm not crazy.
That's just wild. I love it.
all this time, I just thought I was the one that was creeped out. Of course, that deputy didn't help matters any at all when he said you probably don't want to stick around here after dark. But now I find out the place really is haunted, and makes me wonder all the more about that weird house. I wonder if it's still abandoned.
Yeah,
we need to make a Hardy, Arkansas road trip. That sounds like a good trip.
Yeah.
You know, another place that's got its own collection of ghost stories is Eureka Springs, Arkansas.
Yes, it does.
That is a creepy little town. I love that town. Don't get me wrong. I would retire there probably, but Annette doesn't want to, and she just gets an uneasy feeling the whole time we were there. Of course, she's far more sensitive to stuff like that than I am, but Eureka Springs is a neat little town. There's a cemetery. I actually mentioned the cemetery in Apex Predator Blood Moon because that's set in Eureka Springs. But we drove through that cemetery just a month or two ago, and some of those graves are really old, and it's a creepy little cemetery. And the farther back you get, the more disorganized it gets. So you get closer to the back and you're like half expecting to see something come walking towards you. It's a creepy little cemetery. It's old. I mean, it's a nice, well-kept cemetery, but you get farther to the back and everything's a little unkempt and it's still mowed, but the gravestones look pretty odd. Then you start getting a lot of woods encroaching on the cemetery, and yeah, it was the
Wow.
perfect location for Apex Predator.
Eureka Springs, Arkansas is one of my favorite places to visit. I'd like to live there, but I don't
It's
get
a
the
neat
creepy
little town.
feeling from it.
Yeah, if y'all haven't been to Eureka Springs, Arkansas, you should check it out if you're ever in the Ozarks. And if you're there, definitely it is worth your time to eat at the Rockin' Pig Saloon. I know I mentioned it in the books, but I've eaten there and it's fantastic. It's some of the better barbecue I've had in a good long time. Bart Napier says, look at their board of tourism. Is that available from the website?
I was on their board of tourism. I didn't see anything there, but I really wasn't. When I hit the other tabs on my computer, because I'm working off of one screen, yeah, Freudian slip, one screen, it's so bright it hurts my eyes. I have delicate eyes.
Someone asked earlier if I had heard any stories, cryptid stories or anything like that from Jefferson County, Missouri, and I told them I'd have to look. I didn't realize where Jefferson County was. Jefferson County was is up south of St. Louis, near Festus and Herculaneum, Missouri, and yeah, there's a lot of cryptid reports come along the Mississippi River right there. So yeah, there's quite a bit of stories coming out of Johnson County.
Isn't that around the area where the Blue Man is?
I think so.
Yeah.
Up near DeSoto and Olympian Village.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of creepy stuff in Missouri. The Ozarks has a rich tradition in really weird crap, and if it's like a mecca for just the unusual, the strange. I mean, you get little towns like Hardy, Arkansas. Then you got Fouke, Arkansas, which is right in the edge of the Ozarks.
It's actually down in the Wachitas, which is part of
the Wampus. I think are an offshoot of the Ozarks.
They are.
And the Wachitas and the Kiamichis. There's a lot of creepy stuff happens down there. I'd like to rent a cabin up in the Kiamichis for like in the wintertime and see what I could see. I think that would be a hoot and a half.
You and I have a very different idea of what a hoot and a half is. It might be interesting, but I don't think I would be excited about it.
This Chef Yoda says, I told my husband I wanted to retire down in the Ozarks. I want to buy a lake house so I can go fishing anytime I want. Check out property along Table Rock Lake. If you see anything that says joebaldproperties.com, I wouldn't buy land there. I don't think any of that's up for sale. I just made that website up. But yeah, if you find somebody's trying to sell you land in the Joe Bald recreation area, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, there are creepy things that peek out from behind trees at you.
Yes, there are. Cryptidville says, I had some weird stuff happen to me in Rolla. I can believe that. I've got some friends up in Rolla. They're the guys that run the Horror Chronicles podcast. I've done their show several times. They all live in Rolla, and they've told me some good stories, and I've heard some stories on my own. So I'm planning to go up there sometime in November. We're probably going to spend the night up there and go see the site where the Ozarks Howler was seen, and There's some creepy cemeteries up there. There's a lot of creepy stuff near Rolla. So I'm looking forward to going up there and check that out. Linda Thomas says, DA, when will you write another story with Steve Lilly in it? Well, I'm working on a lengthy short story right now called Dog Soldier. That's about Will Gray Eagle in Afghanistan before he became a cop, before he joined the Apex Predator crowd. But after that one, I'm planning another Steve Lilly, kind of about that same length, between 15 and 20,000 words. So it's not really a full book, but it's too long to be considered a short story. So I'm planning on doing another Steve Lilly story. Then it'll involve some other characters, but I haven't decided if it's going to be another Codename Wild Hunt Steve Lilly story, or if this time it'd be the Apex Predator crowd.
I just realized I suddenly forgot what the other story was I wanted to tell. Oh, yes, I remember now. Never mind.
Found it.
Yeah. I'm not trying to ignore you. I just know that if I don't write this stuff down, I'm not going to remember it tomorrow night.
Not a problem.
Yeah. That's the thing about those hills. They are old, those mountains. And they've had a lot of time to develop a lot of crazy things. And, even in Arkansas, there's even, they have their own, it's not a lake monster, it's a river monster called Whitey on the White River.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, they actually have a section of the White River that is, it's sort of reserved for Whitey.
Really?
So that, I think it's one of those sort of touristy, jokey kind of things, but there's a section of the river that's set aside specifically for Whitey. And he's been seen in and out of the water.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't even heard of that one. I need to go down there. That's another good place to check out. I keep finding all these new places.
I spent a lot of time on the White River when I was a kid. But way farther upriver than where that's at. So I never really knew about Whitey till I was an adult. But now that I look back, I'm like, ooh, I spent a lot of time. And that's some cold water. That river is cold. At least
the Niagara was like that. It's all spring fed, so that water's cold. Even in the middle of summer, it's cold.
Well, where the Bull Shoals Dam is the area of the White River that I spent a great deal of my time in. And when they open that dam and that water comes out from the bottom, it's like standing in a bucket of ice. It's just, it'll take your breath away. And on a hot summer day, I don't think there's anything that feels better than having your breath taken away. Especially in Arkansas, where I swear the humidity just makes it so much worse.
Yeah, well, Missouri's that same way. I mean, it's just nothing beats, like you're saying, nothing beats a dip in a spring-fed river, on a sweltering July day, and to me, it's just nothing better. Had a question from Northwoods Cryptid. He said, "At what word count does a short story turn into a novel?" Well, there's microfiction, or microfiction is basically just kind of like the TikTok
flash fiction.
Flash fiction's a little longer, but microfiction is generally under 100 words. Flash fiction is between 100 and 1,000 words. Short stories are usually up to about 7,500, 8,000 words.
15,000.
A novelette goes up to 17,000. A novella is between 17 and 40,000, and anything above 40,000 is considered a novel.
Those numbers are different from what I've always been told.
Really? What numbers have you been told?
I've always been told that of course, the flash fiction and the microfiction are sort of a new thing. So I never really had numbers for those, but I've always been told that a short story is anything 15,000 words or less. A novella is between 15,000 and 50, and a novel is anything over 50. But depending on the type of novel you write, there are anything mystery and horror, you want to be between 70 and 90,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you're going to write an epic, you better be putting in at least 120,000 words or more.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the numbers that I've always been told.
Well,
So
it's still a good general consensus to have. If you're looking to write a novel, it's probably going to be at least 40,000 words.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to. You want to always remember that it takes some words to draw your listener or your reader in,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't do that by glossing over things. Of course, you can also be too wordy, and then I will hate you.
Mark
I
Navy
really
says party time with Whitey.
Yeah.
Just make sure you bring plenty of cold beer because he gets grouchy if you don't.
That's right.
Northwood says ice water is Lake Superior in May. Oof.
I
Troy
have a
says,
really fun story about Lake Superior in July.
Oh, I'd like to hear that.
Well, it's not scary, but my husband and I gone up there, my first husband and I, for a long weekend. And I remember standing ankle deep in Lake Superior water at the end of July, maybe even the beginning of August. And there was a young girl sitting in the water by me. And I looked down at her and I said, "This is miserable. How can you be sitting in that?" And she says, "Oh, I love it. We come down here all the time to visit this beach, eh?" And I was like, "Oh, she's Canadian."
She's Canadian.
That's why that doesn't bother her.
It's a brisk day for Canada. Like, wow, gonna break a sweat. Troy says the Roaring River is like ice water. So is the Current and Jacks Forks River down by Eminence, Missouri. Both those rivers are cold.
Yeah.
Louis Noriega says, I think Florida has the worst humidity of all.
I have to agree. Florida actually technically isn't above water.
It's just the water's just airborne at some point.
Yeah.
Lenita says, here in Alabama, it's so humid you can get water out of dead leaves. Mark Napier says, Guinness and ammo. He had me at Guinness.
It's a combination that you don't necessarily want to tell your local cops about.
No kidding.
So
outside that little town, I used to work as a patrol officer in Walnut Grove, Missouri. It's just a little bitty town. It's about 600, and there's a lot of creepy stories that went on in that town that my chief at the department told me about. How it used to be a nexus for the railroads coming out of St. Louis and Kansas City, and during the cholera epidemics in the 1800s, they brought train car after train car of bodies that had passed away from cholera and buried them in mass graves there in Walnut Grove. And you can still see where they are. And one of them is literally like 10 feet from a house. I'm like, wow, I bet that house is haunted as hell.
yeah.
But just outside the little town of Walnut Grove, and again, it's not a big town. It's like 630 people or something like that. Just outside of that town is a ghost town called Phoenix, Missouri. But they spell it weird. It's like Phenix or something like that. It's an odd spelling for Phoenix. It's the Missouri spelling, basically. But that town has a ton of ghost stories surrounding it, but it's all on private property, and I've never been able to get permission to go in on it. But that's something I'm hoping to do, because now I know who owns the property. So I'm going to see if I can get a hold of them and see if I can go in and film in the old ghost town of Phoenix, because there's a few buildings left, and some of them are intact enough you can go inside them. But again, it's all on private property, and I wouldn't want to get arrested or shot going in there without permission.
I have this vision of someone saying, "Okay, I'm going to name this town PH. How do you spell Phoenix? Oh, just spell it phonetically. Okay. PHFENOTIKALY. Phoenix.
No, that's Missouri.
That's my family. They would have been the ones to name it that.
Northwood says, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives is a government agency, not a suggestion. That sounds like one of my family reunions.
Sounds like a good time.
Every 4th of July, we celebrate the birth of our nation by blowing up a small part of it.
It's the American way.
That's right. There's always
So,
somebody in the family that gets the bright idea to try to make their own fireworks out of smokeless black powder.
yeah, we have a lot of members of our family that are called names like Lefty and Stumpy. Can't imagine where they got those. Oh, shoot, yeah. Can't imagine where those nicknames come from.
Oh, God, no. Mark Napier says, apparently you have never been to Kentucky.
I lived there at one time. I know exactly what Kentucky's like.
Yeah. I've been to Arkansas. That's the place where Deliverance was a love story with a tragic ending. It's like redneck Romeo and Juliet.
You got a pretty mouth.
You know, I bet Ned Beatty once a year on the anniversary of the release of that movie went to his agent's house and punched him in the face.
You know he did.
That man probably could not go anywhere without someone going, hey, you got a pretty mouth. Poor guy who lived the rest of his life going, I hate that movie. Can't believe I signed for that.
Poor Ned Beatty.
When I did the reading, there was nothing about getting hillbilly prommed, getting taken to the hillbilly prom, and I don't remember that part in the script.
That's so funny. But,
you know, and that movie's misleading. I grew up in the hills of Missouri, and I've floated rivers, and I've known a lot of guys that played banjos in my lifetime, but I've never once seen a group of guys in a canoe floating down the river and thought about asking them to the prom. It's never happened. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly don't really see that happening a lot anywhere.
Not in my family, anyway. At least not on the cousins we claim.
No.
Ned Beatty has family from Kentucky. Well, then he should have been prepared.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the town that dreaded sundown?
I've heard that, but I can't place it.
It's actually an Arkansas thing. It's
really?
Texarkana, Arkansas. The what do they call it? The Lover's Lane killer, who really apparently wasn't all that good at killing people because he left a lot of survivors. But they never determined for sure who it was either. And that's a mystery that I've always wanted to explore in more depth. There are a lot of people who think that the person that did that, they actually wound up going to jail for something else or going to an insane asylum, and I don't remember which. And he died a few years ago. But they've never proven who the killer was. He just quit killing.
You know, that I read once, and I think it was a quote from, I want to say it was a quote from Ted Bundy. And it was a terrifying quote. He told a reporter one time, you know, the serial killers are only the ones you've caught. The good ones, you'll never know they exist. Makes you wonder how many of them are operating at any one given time in the United States. You need to go to the
FBI website and ask that question, and you will be shocked at the number.
I probably don't want to know.
Well, let me look it up for you.
I dealt with one guy when I was a corrections officer that technically met the qualifications for a serial killer, but he had killed most of his people while in jail.
Wow.
And our mental health doctor at the jail, she told me one time, she says, Roberts, this guy is the closest to a Hannibal Lecter you are probably ever going to meet in your lifetime. And she was absolutely right. I mean, he was brilliant, absolutely super intelligent guy, but just creepy as all get out.
According to the
sorry.
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead and read your story.
Okay. Oh, Lewis says past Bakersfield, you're going to pass a lot of abandoned towns up there before you get to Taft, California. I love creepy old abandoned towns. You never know what you're gonna find.
Yeah, me too. According to the FBI, the number of serial killers that are still not caught among the USA varies between 25 and 50.
Good to
So
know.
there you go. Yeah. And actually, that number is lower than I remembered it being. So maybe they've caught a few in the last few years.
Ones that screwed up.
Yeah. They're only a serial killer when you know what they're doing.
True.
And, you know, when they operate, when their primary victims are the homeless and prostitutes and Native Americans and people, you know, other minorities.
Mhm.
Even when the cops know, and I'm not trying to bash the cops, it's just the way our society is. Even when they know they're out there operating, doesn't necessarily make the news and make people know that they're aware of it.
Yeah.
So my favorite Ted Bundy story, and Lanita, I still have not had time to read your email. I need to open it up and just read through it. But my favorite Ted Bundy story was there was a young couple that were dating. It was their first date. And it from the minute the date started, they were both just so not into it at all. It wasn't working out. And finally, the guy finally is like, you know, he's taking the girl home and they're about to get home. And he says, you know, let's go for a walk in the woods. And she says, yeah, okay, let's do that. So they go out to his favorite hiking spot and they're going through the woods. And of course, they don't have a flashlight because he's quite familiar with it. And it's a bright moon. And they get pretty deep into the woods and the guy stopped. And he says, we have to leave. We have to go back. We're done. And he ushers the girl out of the woods and she's like, what happened? He says, I don't know. Something just did not feel right. I stepped on something. We needed to leave. Well, as it turned out, that little escapade into the woods was enough to make this couple have interest in each other, and they eventually got married. Years passed, and they were watching an interview with Ted Bundy, and the person interviewing him asked, "Was there ever a moment when you thought you were caught?" And he said, "Yes, I was in the woods. I had just killed my victim, and there was a couple coming up the path, and the man actually stepped on her hand or something. I don't remember which. And he said, I thought I was caught, but instead of moving forward, they turned around and went back. And the couple went, that was us." I love that
would
story.
be terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Lanita says, Phil Scheider, engineer building underground bases. Aliens shot him with a laser gun.
Wow.
RJ says Indian Affairs doesn't keep track of how many missing Native women from the res. There's a highway up in Canada. I think I can't remember what they call it. It's like the Highway of Terror, the Highway of Tears, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where over the last like 25 years, like dozens of mostly Native American women have gone missing. And I was watching a podcast about it. And there are a lot of people among the Native Americans up there that believe Bigfoot it may be responsible because it's 9 times out of 10 it's a woman who had just recently had a child or was with child.
Mm-hmm.
They find the vehicle abandoned along the road, like it had stopped because something got in the way, and the car door be open and the woman's gone. They never find a sign of him. There's no sign of another vehicle having been there. They think these women are getting stopped along the highway and dragged off by Bigfoot.
Oh, wow.
I need to find more on it, and we should do a show on that. But it's pretty terrifying, and I've often said that there's probably more people go missing because of cryptids than we want to comfortably realize.
Yeah, I agree. Do you remember the pig farmer story? That was, I think it was actually in the U.S., but it was two brothers who owned a farm. They turned the farm into sort of a nightclub type place, a roadhouse kind of party place. And women would go there and they would come up missing. And the of course, it was overlooked because of the fact that most of the women were either prostitutes or they were indigenous women. And finally the one brother got caught, and what they were doing was he was killing them, keeping them and torturing them for several days, and then killing them and feeding them to the pigs. So
if you want to make a body disappear,
that's a fast
a
way to do
bunch
it.
of pigs will do it. If you've got a dozen pigs in a big pen, and you drop a human body in there with them, it'll be gone in 30 minutes, and they'll eat everything, bones included.
Yes.
The only thing they might find is their teeth, because they won't digest.
It's called the Highway of Tears murders, by the way,
Highway
that you
of
were
Tears.
talking about earlier. Yeah.
I knew it was something like that. But
the official numbers,
dozens.
Since the 1960s, the official number, and with 39% of the cases being after the year 2000, the official number is 582 women.
Oh my God, it's way more than I thought.
That's equal to
There's a
the
show
missing
there.
women in Mexico.
Yeah.
Absolutely, there's a show there. We need to do that.
Yeah, we need to do some research on that and do a show. Louis Noriega says, wasn't there something about Chinese women, the rail workers, also disappearing when they're putting a railroad to the transcontinental? I believe there was. I remember reading something about that. And at the time, they just assumed they ran off. But I firmly believe that cryptids like Bigfoot and possibly Dogman have been picking us off for a long time. RJ says, sounds like a target-rich environment.
I want to know how RJ knows that you have to remove the teeth and shave their heads. I want to know how you know that, RJ. Or do I? Maybe
Lanita
I don't
Bryant
know that.
Says fried green tomatoes. Secrets in the sauce.
That's right. Yeah, I think it would be interesting. I mean, we could do a show and we could cover the indigenous women. We could do the railway women, and we could do the missing women of Mexico because of Juarez, because they have a huge population of missing women. Yeah. How do you know that, RJ?
Down there, I bet in Mexico, I bet there would be more to do with human trafficking. But you wouldn't think there would be a lot of human trafficking along a remote highway in Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, in towns, yeah, I would get it. But that highway is not exactly I-44. I mean, it's not a major interstate. It's a little narrow 2-lane highway through the backwoods of Canada.
Yeah. So you raised a lot of pigs, RJ?
We used to when I was young.
Yeah.
Don't want to get the pigs sick.
No. We need
RJ,
to hang out, RJ.
You worry me sometimes, brother. I get a little bit worried about you there.
Ooh.
Mark Napier says a lot of dogmen down on the border. That's true. I've heard a lot of accounts of dogmen sightings, packs of dogmen by the U.S. Border Patrol.
Wow. We need to really explore this a little more.
I think we've got the basis of a show. And we might have to take a week or two to do some in-depth research on it. But I think we got the makings of a good show with that Highway of Tears.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's set a date for that.
Okay. We can discuss it after we go off the air.
Yeah, we will. No pigs here.
Does anybody out there have a creepy story they'd like to tell?
Yeah.
We'd be more than happy to send you a link to the show, and you can pop in if you've got a camera or just audio, and we'd be happy to let you tell your story on the air. RJ, we don't want you to say anything that's going to incriminate you.
Anybody?
Anybody wants to pop into the show, just let me know, and I will be happy to post the link. Lindy says Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Based off of one of my favorite serial killers. Well, Ed Gein, he's the basis for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho, and Buffalo Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I love Ed. I don't love Ed Gein, but it's a really
Like the stories.
fascinating story. Yeah, I have 3 favorite serial killers, 4 actually. So I'm really into Chikatilo, who was a
Mhm.
Russian serial killer. But my 3 favorites are Ed Gein, Albert Fish, and of course, anybody who likes to study serial killers has to like the Grim Reaper. Yeah,
The Grim Reaper.
Jack the Ripper.
Or H.H. Holmes. The Murder House.
Yeah, they say some people think H.H. Holmes was Jack the Ripper.
I've read that theory, and it's oddly compelling.
It is.
RJ says it's snowing there. I'll never keep the signal, but thanks. Cryptidville says my whole life has been creepy and weird.
Well, we'll
I've
send
been
you a
noticing-
link.
Yeah, if you want to come on and tell some creepy stories, we'll send you a link. I'm the same way. My whole life has been just surrounded. I've grown up here in the Ozarks. I've been surrounded with hearing creepy stories and having strange things happen. And the weird thing is a lot of them I didn't put 2 and 2 together until later. Like, hey, wait a minute, that's not right. What the hell were we thinking?
I actually, I can't say that my whole life has been creepy and weird, but my whole life I've been described as creepy and weird. So I guess I fit in.
Lewis agrees with us about H.H. Holmes. Yeah, there's a compelling theory that H.H. Holmes was actually was actually Jack the Ripper, and I think it's really
It's quite interesting.
really a cool story if you look into it. We should do a serial killers show too.
Oh boy,
Just
I
on
have books
serial
and
killers.
books and books on serial killers.
Well, that's right up your alley.
Yeah, that's one
Hey.
of my favorite topics.
Well, how about next Wednesday we do serial killers?
Lanita, can I tell your story next Wednesday on this show? I don't know. Is she still with us? I thought she was.
I think she is. Yeah, she commented the Texas Chainsaw Massacre not too long ago. But I think next Wednesday we'll do a show on serial killers.
Cool.
Linda says yes.
All right. Well, next Wednesday we're going to hear about Lanita and Ted Bundy.
Ooh. You know, when people are executed by lethal injection or gas chamber, whatever they used, there's always that group of people out there that are protesting the use of the death penalty and stuff. And I get that, but I worked as a corrections officer and I've looked pure evil in the face. And there are some folks that just, that's what they need. That's what they need, because they're not going to be reformed. They're if they ever got out of prison, they're going to do it again. And just pure evil. Evil exists in humanity, and anybody says otherwise is selling something. But at every time that I've ever heard of, when somebody was sentenced to death, there was always a group of protesters there protesting the use of the death penalty. However, when Ted Bundy was executed, there were approximately 250 outside the prison holding up signs that said "Fry Bundy, fry." They were all for it that night.
Ted Bundy, you rat bastard.
Cook him good. Hit him twice.
Yeah, they do count Manson as a serial killer. I don't actually, he was convicted of masterminding the entire, but I don't think he actually killed anybody. He was a perfect example of someone who should have stayed in jail, because every time he was let out from the time, and granted he had, you have to at some point kind of feel sorry for him, because he had a bad life from the word go. But every time he was let out of jail, he would go down the wrong road. And clearly the system was not reforming him.
No.
So
Louis Noriega says we can talk about the Anderson family in Chino. That would be interesting. Yeah, there's just such a wealth of information about serial killers. I'm surprised we haven't thought of doing a serial killer show before, because I know it's something you really enjoy talking about. RJ says they count Manson as a killer, but he's never been convicted of killing. You just mentioned that. You were already reading it before I even brought it up on screen.
I'm sorry. I see names and my eyes immediately go to them, because racking my brain trying to remember their names, but they're back in the Victorian era. If a woman got pregnant in England, there was abortion wasn't legal, and they would go secretly off and have the baby, and then they would hire the basically baby farms to send their baby off to, and they would go work in a factory or in a domestic situation, and with the idea of going back to check on their child once or twice a year or whatever. And there was an entire, and I can't think of the lady's name, but she would take the babies and starve them to death just by neglecting them. Or she might actually go ahead and put something in their bottle to kill them if she felt up to it or she had the money for the poison. Usually she would just neglect them until they died, and then she would go off and bury them, but she would collect the money as long as she could for taking care of the baby. And when the mom would come back, she would either pretend that she'd never had the child and the woman was crazy, or that the woman had agreed to adopt the child out. And she managed to escape prosecution for years doing that, and killed untold number of babies that way in England. And that's one that really fascinates me. There's another lady who is like the first Black Widow and considered one of the first serial killers because she was actually pre Jack the Ripper, who would have, she'd have boarders come and stay at her house and kill them off for the money they had on them, or marry them and kill them for the whatever she could inherit from them.
Mm-hmm.
And she operated for years and years and years. And she's considered one of the first serial killers because she
was it Elizabeth Bathory?
No, she Elizabeth Bathory was actually 1650s, and she was in Europe. And her story, I love her story. She's considered, a lot of people think of her as being a vampire, because they say that she liked to bathe in the blood of virgins and things like that. But there's a lot of evidence that says that she actually just got a raw deal for being a strong, independent woman at the wrong time in history. But she was eventually walled up behind a brick wall in a room of her house and left there. So... And we do definitely. Wild. We have to do an axe murders episode too.
Oh,
because there are so many people who don't realize that Lizzie Borden was not the only. I'm a little off. I'm watching my mouth move. It's weird. Anyway, there are axe murders houses all over the United States. The
Valeska house in Iowa.
Which is probably my favorite. That yes, I'm actually doing researching to do one of those right now for What If It's True?
Nice.
For the Valeska axe murder house. But there are axe murder houses in Colorado. There are axe murder houses in Texas. There are a whole series of axe murder houses around New Orleans. And they all seem to fall within the train lines as if it was a traveling serial killer.
Could have been the same person. Cryptidville, thank you for joining us.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. Sorry I don't have a webcam on this particular computer.
No problem.
You don't want to look at my ugly mug anyways.
Oh, you look
I've
at
got the face
for
radio, so.
So
what kind of stories you got for us?
What kind of story do you want?
Something that'll make me have nightmares tonight.
Something creepy.
Okay, I got one for you. Now this is I've actually been to this house. So my best friend when I was in high school, he was telling me about this house that his aunt and uncle were living in for a short time. And when he was telling me about it, his mother was like, well, the next time we travel down through there on a road trip, we'll stop by and we'll check it out. So we did actually do that. And, the house was, this, let me set the scene for you. This is Southwest Louisiana. This house is in between um, the Fort Polk area and Lafayette, Louisiana. It's somewhere in between there. I can't remember exactly where, but it's not near any kind of city. It's just on a stretch of highway. There you can't even see the house from the road when you go by it
Are
because
you from Cajun country yourself?
I was raised there. I'm not from there. I was just raised there. So when you go by this property, there's trees growed up all around the house. There's actually trees growing up through the house and out the windows, but the house is still standing. So, anyhow, the story is that his aunt and uncle were living in this house. They were living in the Beaumont area, and his uncle was working somewhere in Louisiana, and they needed to find someplace closer to his work so he wasn't driving from Beaumont all the way over there every day to go to work. So they found this little house and they rented it and they moved in. And one of the things that they mentioned was that at late at night they had his cousin at the time was a baby. She was not even a year old. She was maybe 6 months old at the time. So it was the aunt, the uncle, and the little baby. They were all living in the house, and they had a little dog, a little Chihuahua. So, as it turns out, when they right after they moved in, they noticed that at night, real late, they would hear knocking, and they would think that they would hear footsteps, but they weren't real sure. Well, it got to the point where they were hearing knocking in the house, knocking in the attic, knocking, footsteps, throughout the house while they were trying to sleep. And then it kind of progressed a little bit, and the baby would wake up and she would just be screaming her head off, just from a dead sleep in the middle of the night. They had no explanation for it. They'd go in, they'd calm her down, and she would go back to sleep. So things rocked on for a while, and it's the activity kind of stayed about the same, where they were hearing these knockings and the baby would wake up in the middle of the night screaming, and they just had no explanation for it. So they decided one weekend that they were going to take an overnight trip, and they were going to leave on Saturday morning, stay wherever they were going to go Saturday night, and then come back Sunday morning. Well, they didn't want to take the dog, so they put him a big bowl of food and a big bowl of water in the bathroom, and they locked him in the bathroom, and they took off on their little day trip. Well, they came back Sunday morning, and normally they would hear the dog barking, trying to get out of the bathroom, or whenever they would lock him up in the past. They didn't hear any of that. He was in the bathroom. He was still locked in the bathroom. The door was shut. Nobody had been in the house. But when they went in there, they said that it looked like somebody wrung that dog like a dish rag. Poor little fella
Wow.
was dead, laying on the bathroom floor, and they were just like, at that point she started his aunt was like, we need to start looking for another place. This is just too weird, and if it's going to harm the animal, an animal, we've got the baby, what are we going to do? So they started looking for another place, and they found one. Well, because of all the weird stuff that they had happen while they were living there, they decided they were going to kind of keep tabs on the place. Well, after they moved out, it sat vacant for about 2 or 3 weeks, and a family of 4 or 5 moved in. They stayed about a month and a half, and they moved out. And it sat vacant for a couple weeks, and a young couple moved in. They didn't stay but about a week. They moved out. Well, the owner of the property started having a problem finding people that were interested in renting it because word was spreading, word of mouth, that the place was haunted and that there was all this weird stuff going on. So it sat vacant for a good while, and this motorcycle club decided they wanted to rent it. And when they rented it, they turned it into their clubhouse, right? They moved in and they started working on it. And now we're talking about a bunch of guys. They started working on it and getting it, all the stuff that needed fixed and all that. Started laying their claim to their property. And I think they may have stayed about a week and a half before they moved out. Well, the guy that owned it couldn't find anybody that would rent it. So he just said, well, I'm just not going to put it on the open market, for renters, and I'm just going to, let it sit. So through time, the place growed up. The man got older. He couldn't keep it up. So he just kind of let it go. Well, the aunt and uncle decided they were going to visit some of their family, and their path that they were traveling took them right by this house. So they decided they were going to stop and check it out because they remembered the place, right? So they pull up and they pull onto the property, and it's all grown up, and they get out and they're looking around. They're walking around the property, and everything's cool, calm, and collective. They don't see anything. They don't hear anything. They see that the house has got all these trees growed up around it, and trees growing up through the floor and out the window. And it's just real creepy looking. So they look around for about 20 or so minutes, and they decide they're done. So they go back to their vehicle and they get in, and they're sitting there and they're talking about, all the stuff that they experienced while they were there. And out of nowhere, here comes a naked man running across the yard right in front of the vehicle, straight for the vehicle. And he's got a double bit axe in his hand. The uncle looks up and he sees this guy coming, and he's like, what in the heck? He doesn't know what to do. The guy jumps up on the hood, and this really happened. The guy jumps up on the hood, and he's hacking at the windshield and hacking at the roof of the car. Well, the uncle is trying to start the car up, right? Because he doesn't, he's obviously unarmed, and he doesn't want any confrontation with this guy, and he's, wielding an axe at him. So he finally gets the car started, and kind of like movie style, he backs up and he kind of does a front end fishtail, and he flings the guy off of the hood of the car, and he rolls off into a pile, and he pulls out on the highway, and he's burning rubber down the highway. They go to the next town and they call the law. Well, naturally, anytime that you call the law and you report an assault like that, you have to go back to the scene of where it happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the cops show up, and they got the guy. They finally catch the guy. They got him in handcuffs, and they're bringing him across the yard to put him in the cop car. And they're standing there talking to this one cop, telling him what happened. And the guy, when they're bringing him across the yard, all they could hear him saying is, the voices in the house are telling me to kill people. And the voices, and he's just going on and rambling about the voices in the house telling him to kill people. And they put him in the car, and they took him, I don't know where. I'm assuming they arrested him. But
Hopefully, they took him to the insane asylum.
No
yeah.
kidding.
Ain't that the truth?
So, but after I heard that story, we actually went to that house, and it's just like they described it. You know, trees are growing up through the floor and everything. And we got out and looked around. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything, but it was definitely a creepy looking place. But yeah, that is one of many stories.
Well, that was
That
a pretty
is-
awesome one.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that was in Louisiana?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a wonder he didn't get the bees, man. I mean, because most folks don't go around there not healed.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he'd have jumped up on the hood of my car and started hacking into the windshield, I'd have probably put a magazine through the windshield.
At least one.
At least one.
I'd have taken
Until
him for
the
a wild
problem
ride.
goes away.
Yeah. Good Lord, man. That's horrifying.
Kerry, thanks for joining us, brother.
Thank you for having me, brother. Good to see you.
You too. How you doing?
I am above ground and in front of the bars. How about you?
Well, you know, they say any day you wake up on this side of the dirt's got to be a good one.
That's right. I'm on the right side of the green. Miss Naoma, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, but I'm going to leave you
Good.
for a second. I need some more coffee, guys. I'll be back in a minute.
Alrighty. Folks, if you guys are unfamiliar with Kerry Pocket Doc Davis, he's the owner of Dark Angel Medical and also has featured in several of my books, including the short story I'm currently writing called Dog Soldier. He's a prominent fixture and he always has time to answer all of my really weird medical questions like, all right, I did this. How do I fix it? Or can I fix it?
Love doing it for you, brother. Love doing it for you.
Well, I sure appreciate it, man.
Always
Pressure.
A good time. Always a good time. So that was a pretty good story, Cryptidville, man. That's terrifying, bro.
Hell
Seriously.
yeah.
I got one that's, you know, I mentioned it earlier when I talked about Rolla.
Mhm.
In a past life, I may or may not have been at a military installation there, and had some
Fort Lost in the Woods.
Ugh.
lost in the woods.
Ugh.
I spent some time sentenced to Fort Lost in the Woods as well.
That place is horrible.
Yeah.
Well, when I was on my tour there, taking in the scenery, it was still very much my dad used to call it Little Korea, and it was very much Little Korea still at that time when I went through there. But it's a rather short story, and I don't want to hog the mic, but if you guys want to hear, just let me know.
Sure,
I can
go right ahead.
tell you what happened real quick. So you know how basic training is, right?
Mhm.
You go through basic training, you've got your different stages, and the last stage is where you do your 12, 15 miles and road march, and
Mhm.
then you bivouac for 3 days, and then you repeat back to the barracks prior to graduation. So we did our road march. We went back to this area. I have no earthly idea where exactly it was. They kind of keep you in the dark about a lot of stuff while you're there. So we get to this place, and it's a very well traveled training area, obviously for new recruits. So we get to this place the first day, actually we got there right at sundown, and we got there, we started setting up our camps, our shelter halves, if you will. And Now, picture in your mind, there are these little shelter halves, and they're set up, and there's like, I would say, easily 100 of these shelter halves, and they're spread out, 15 to 20 feet apart in this wooded area. And you're not expecting anything weird to happen because there's so many people there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that first night, I was in the shelter, and a lot of people, they had the tendency to sleep with their head to the entry point.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was the opposite. I actually crawled into it, and I was laying there asleep. From a dead sleep, I woke up, and my spidey sense was going off, and I didn't know what was going on, but I was laying there listening. I couldn't hear anything. Obviously, I couldn't see anything, but I knew that something wasn't right. And what that something was, I have no idea. So I lay there, tried to go back to sleep, and it just kept bugging me. And I was like, something is not right. And finally I said, to heck with it. I'm getting out of this thing. I have to see what's going on. So here, imagine, if you will, here I am. I coming out of the shelter half, feet first, and I get into like a push-up position, and I stand up. And when I stand up, I am face to face with what I think is another soldier standing there. I could have smacked this, whatever this was. I could have smacked it. It was that close to me. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, who is this? And I'm thinking, what is he doing? Why is he out of his, shelter half? Does he not realize that he will catch a mean butt whooping if people, if everybody else catches him out here? So I'm like, well, I'm going to say something to him. So I go, what are you doing? I whispered it just like that. I said, what are you doing? No response. It didn't move. It just stood there. It kind of reminded me of, it kind of gave me the impression of a person in a ghillie suit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, surely this person knows that I'm standing here. So I said, well, maybe they didn't hear me. So I go a little bit louder, and I go, what are you doing? Nothing. Just standing there face to face with this, what I'm thinking is a person. And I'm like, okay, if something doesn't happen here pretty quick, I'm fixing to bulldog this dude. So all of a sudden, I hear boots on gravel, and there's actually another company that is road marched in, and they're road marching into that same area. And now, mind you, we're not far from the road at all. So when I hear the boots coming in, I'm like, oh no, we're fixing to get bushwhacked up in here. So I'm like, I turn and I look, and I see that it's another company road marching in. And when I turn back to what I'm thinking is another person, there is nobody there. I didn't hear. Now there's leaf litter all over the place. If this person took off running or hid behind a tree, he would have had to take a good 4 or 5 steps to do that. I would have heard them move. I didn't hear anything. Whoever or whatever this was just instantly gone. And I'm like, that is like totally weird. And now
Yeah.
I've only experienced anything similar to that in some of my cryptid encounters. So yeah, very, very weird experience. I can't say that it was. I can't say what it was. It may have been somebody, but all I can say is if it was a person, they were good. They were very good.
Yeah, that would be pretty terrifying. especially if you turn around and they're gone. I mean, it makes you wonder if it was a ghost or something else that can move like ninja quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this it really bugged me, and what's weird about it is I never really said anything to anybody about it because I was always under the impression that it was one of the NCOs or one of the drills, because their mode of operating when you're on that bivouac is they're going to mess with you.
Oh yeah, it's kind of their favorite thing in life.
So yeah, it was kind of strange.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah,
You said you've had a bunch of cryptid encounters as well?
Oh Lord.
Do tell.
Well, I'm not looking to have a late night visit tonight, so when I start talking about it, spec ops guys in blacked out uniforms with no insignias, they like to prowl around the property here, and that makes me a little bit jumpy when I start talking about stuff. So I mean, I'll tell some stories, but I'm gonna be kind of guarded about what I talk about.
That's no problem, man.
Because when I get on certain subjects, weird stuff like that happens, and I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So
that said,
what do you want to what do you want to hear? You want to hear about my first encounter with a cryptid?
yes.
Well, it sounds like the basic training one might have been your first encounter with a cryptid.
Yeah.
I don't. You must understand that I don't really classify an encounter as anything unless I'm able to. It's kind of like when you go hunting. This is something that every hunter should be able to relate to. So when you go hunting, and the rule of good firearm stewardship is you never shoot at anything that you cannot positively identify, right?
Yeah.
So I don't call it a cryptid encounter unless I could positively identify it as such. Unless I see enough of that whatever it is I'm seeing to say this is what it was. And I've had several where I couldn't do that. So I can't really say, like the one that I just told you guys, I can't really say what that was other than weird.
Yeah.
So anyhow, my first Bigfoot encounter actually took place when I was a teenager living in Louisiana. When I was growing up, there were two seasons, hunting and fishing. And we had just came out of hunting season and going into fishing season, and it was starting to warm up. And I decided one day that I was going to go down to the creek and go fishing. So my 14, 15-year-old mode of transportation at that time was Pat and Ben. So I took off, heading to the creek, and I'm going down a trail, and I come around this bend in the trail, and when I'm going through the bend, on either side there is this huge thicket. And when I come around the bend, it opens up into a bottom, and the trees are spaced out, and you can see a good 125 yards easy. Well, when you come around that curve, there's a small drainage that or old swamp creek or wet weather creek that runs through there, and it always holds water right there on the trail because ATV traffic and people going through there, it's kind of made it lower than what the rest of it is. So you have to kind of go around the big puddle. So I'm trying to navigate around this big puddle, and I hear something to my right coming through the woods. And when I see it, I'm thinking in my mind, now mind you, at 14, I was not thinking anything about Bigfoot. I was thinking I'm going to go fishing and going to go have fun and do what I like to do. So when I turn and I look, when I hear this movement, I'm thinking it's somebody. And then I'm thinking that it's somebody because of the way they were acting, that it's somebody that's out there doing something that they shouldn't be doing, like trying to poach or kill deer out of season or something like that. Because when I turned and I looked and I saw them, my first thought was, who is that? I know everybody that lives around there. Surely they're going to come forward and say, hey, how's it going? What have you? But they didn't. They went right behind a tree. So I stop and I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, this is definitely weird, because anybody that knows that I was just constantly out there in those woods. So anybody that lived around there, unless there was somebody that recently moved in, would know who I was. So I'm like trying to figure out who it could be. So I'm standing there and I'm looking at them and I'm standing behind this tree, or at the tree that they're standing behind is probably a better way to put it. And I can't see them. I can just see the tree, and I'm like trying to figure out who it could be. And then all of a sudden I hear or see a flash of movement of them taking a single step. Now they took a single step from behind the tree that they were behind to behind another tree. And when they did, the only part of their body that I was able to see was the area of their knee, a little bit of their lower thigh, their knee, and maybe a little bit of calf. And when I saw that area of their body, my mind was registering what I was seeing, but I didn't make a correlation. That area of their body looked to me like it was reddish brown fur that had mud and leaves caked in it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm still thinking, who is this? They took another step behind another tree, and they, for whatever reason, they were trying to conceal themselves. So I'm just standing there, and further down on the creek, I hear two shots ring out from a shotgun. And I'm like, okay, this has definitely got to be somebody that's not from around here. And they're down here trying to poach deer. So I'm just going to wait till they come out from behind that tree and confront. So I'm standing there. I hear the two shots from the shotgun, and not even a minute goes by. And all of a sudden I hear this sound that I'm very familiar with. Being a deer hunter, avid deer hunter, the sound of deer running through open woods is something that you know, when you hear it, you know what it sounds like. And it's coming straight for me. So I'm thinking, oh no, this person has shot this deer and it's wounded and it's coming straight for me. So I turn and I jump back across this mud puddle and I run maybe 20 yards up this trail into the thicket area of the trail. And what's weird about it is after I jump the mud puddle, I can still hear it running, the deer running through the woods. And then all of a sudden, now I can't do this because if I do, my dog is going to go crazy. But I hear it running, and then all of a sudden I hear the sound. It sounds like a big whoop, like something, like it sounded kind of like it hit, like it might have been hit on the ground, or like it fell down on the ground or something like that. And then I didn't hear any movement after that. So I'm standing up there, and I've got thicket on both sides of me. And I'm thinking, do I go back down there? Do I just, call it quits? What do I do? That's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, I start getting this really uneasy feeling. And I'm like, something is not right with this. What in the world is going on? So I'm like, I'm done. So I turn around and I carry my happy butt back to the house.
Wise decision.
So sometime many years later, I kind of put that whole experience in the back of my mind, and I never really paid it a whole lot of attention until I had my next encounter or sighting. It wasn't really an encounter. It was more of a sighting. But after, and it's kind of up in the air as to, when my next encounter happened because of what happened at Fort Leonard Wood. But when I got to my first permanent duty station, me and another guy were on a mission. Can't really get into the details of that, but anyways, long story short, I watched a auburn-haired. This thing it was beautiful. The hair on this thing looked like the color of an Irish setter. I watched it run through an area of woods that was open like a swamp bottom. And I could see this thing running wide open. And it's one of those scenarios where if I hadn't been looking in that particular direction at the moment, I never would have seen it. But it ran across that opening into a big thicket and went out of sight. I mean, the hair on this thing's back was like a good 10 to 12 inches long, maybe longer. And it looked clean. Like it was, the sun was hitting his hair, and it was just glistening. It's how clean it looked. And anyhow, in between that first sighting when I was a kid and my next sighting, I did a little research, reading a few books, stuff like that. And that's when I found out some of the things that these creatures will do. Now, I honestly think that what happened in my first encounter, I think he was just trying to keep me from seeing him, obviously. I think he may have been hunting, may have known that there was a hunter in the woods. And I think when the deer came up into that area, I think he may have grabbed it and smacked it up against a tree. Now, granted, I can't prove that. All I have is the sounds that I heard when I went back up the trail. But, it was just weird that, I heard all this, foot traffic from this deer, and then the big loud thump, and then nothing. So, and I mean, it is possible the deer may have ran into a tree, but it was just too weird. So.
I'm sorry. I'm not laughing. It's just that I had this vision of Wile E. Coyote painting a tunnel on a tree and then trying to run through it. That was my first thought. I'm sorry. But
I have to tell you I'll go ahead and tell you the scariest encounter that I've ever had. So I was living in a place that had it had a 4x8, maybe bigger window on the front of this place, and had this huge curtain. Well, my work desk, I was actually working from home, set facing this window. And during the daytime, I would open the curtain so I could look up from the monitor and look out the window and, see what was going on. So on that particular night, I'm sitting there and I'm looking out the window periodically just to ease the strain on my eyes. Anybody that spends a lot of time behind a screen will tell you that, I don't know how much time you guys spend behind a screen, but after you spend, a good 6 hours straight behind a screen, it'll wear on your eyes. And one of the things that they actually recommend to fix that is to look at something in a distance and, in your natural environment. And that'll help ease the strain on your eyes from looking at the screen. So that day, as it started to get dark, I forgot to close the curtain. So it had already gotten dark, and I was sitting there, and I was actually doing some phone calls with customers that day. And I'm talking to this customer, and I look up and I look out the window into the sky, and I can see an airplane flying across the sky. I can see the light flashing. I can see it moving. And I'm like sitting there. I'm like, okay. So I finished up with that customer, and I start talking to another one. And I'm talking a distance of not even 5 minutes. And I look up again, and in the same area, I see this light, and I'm looking at it. Now, I had a floor lamp in my apartment at the time, the place that I was living, that sat directly behind me. It's one of those ones where the light's in the top of it. It's
Like a torchère.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So I'm sitting there and I look up. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So
Okay, we've got feedback, Mark. Hang on just a second.
Okay.
Am I the only one hearing this, DA?
It was my phone. Sorry.
Okay.
I was trying to shut it up.
Okay, Mark, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I'm looking out the window and I see this light, or what I'm thinking is a light, in the sky. And I'm like, I just watched that airplane fly by and out of view. And I noticed that it's not flashing. And I'm like, what in the world is that? And I kind of leaned forward a little bit and I'm looking at it. And I realize that what I'm looking at is no light. What I'm looking at is a reflection of the lamp that's behind me in an eyeball.
Holy cow.
I'm looking, and about the time I realize what I'm looking at, I can see the side of this thing's face. And it had hair, and its skin was gray. And I'm thinking to myself 3 different thoughts. I'm like, what do I do? I'm like thinking to myself, no sudden movement, because I mean, this thing was right there on the other side of the glass. And I mean, if it wanted me, all it had to do was put its arm through that window. And I'm like, no sudden movements. And I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at it. I'm looking dead in its eye. And I'm like, the third thought is, oh crap, when I get off work tonight, I've got to go outside. And when I think that, I'm like, I just sit back in the chair. Now, mind you, I have a customer on the phone during this. I sit back in the chair and I look down at the screen and I wrap the call up with the customer. And when I look back up, it's gone. And then I can hear the landlord's dog going crazy. This dog was about an 80-pound chocolate lab, and this dog was going crazy. It did not like that thing being around in its territory at all.
Wow.
And that was very unnerving because I had to go outside when I got off work.
That is just crazy.
Wow. That'll make you poop your pants a little bit.
Yeah, I am amazed that there were 3 thoughts there, because my only thought would have been, oh dear God, oh dear God, oh dear God. And it would have been that for my customer on the phone would have heard that. My customer on the phone at some point would have called a psychiatrist for me. There would have been nothing beyond, oh dear God, oh dear God, oh dear God. That would have just freaked me out.
Well, that's one thing that my bosses at that particular job, they liked, and this is something that I get in routine trouble for. The world could be on fire, burning, and it could be raining razor blades at the same time, and I would be just like calm.
Yeah, I've heard of that emotion. Never quite experienced it.
Well, it's something that gets me into routine trouble because what's a 5 alarm to me is not, or to somebody else is not a 5 alarm to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it has something to do with being shot at.
I'm the opposite. I can make an inferno out of a matchstick. So
yeah. But what I was going to say is that's one of the things that my bosses at that job liked, is because I could focus on being calm and connecting with people.
Yeah.
And de-escalating an upset person. And I actually had to do that in that job. I mean, and in retrospect to that, I mean, yeah, I was threatened at that job. I had a guy tell me he was going to hunt me down one night. So needless to say, yeah, not a wise thing for him to say.
Well, yeah, I've had a lot of men say a lot of unwise things to me too. I understand that. They pay dearly for it. Well, Mark, we appreciate you telling us your stories. Those were really interesting.
Well, consider it a privilege, because I don't routinely share a whole lot. Not because I'm trying to keep anything from anybody, but
consequences aren't all that cool.
That, and I have this thing with spectacles.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to feel like a spectacle, and sometimes and trust me, there are things that I could get into, which I'm not, that would kind of put me into that classification.
Yeah.
So
when you're a member of this community, being a spectacle seems to just be part of the game. So
Part for the course.
Yeah. I've been called a lot of things in my life, and none of them have been nice. So, over this particular topic, so I understand that. But we do appreciate you coming on and telling them, sharing your stories with us, and we do appreciate. We do see that as a privilege, and we thank you for it.
Oh, no problem. And there is a whole lot more, and maybe we can get into that some other time.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah,
if DA
definitely.
told you, but I live very close to everybody's favorite scary place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So do I.
you do.
Well, I don't live that close to it, but I live within an hour.
I can get in my truck and be sitting downtown in 15 minutes.
Wow. Well, it takes me about an hour to get there. So, but, well, Mark, I'm going to rudely hang up on you because I think we're going to talk to Carrie now, but I appreciate it. You stick with us and hear it for the rest of the show, though. Don't take it personal.
All right.
Thank you again.
All right.
Have a
Y'all
good
have a
night,
good
sir.
night.
Have a good night, Mark.
Good night.
Doc, how the hell are you, sir?
Man, if I was any better, I'd be twins. How the hell are you, DA?
Live and kicking so far, but it's early.
That's correct, sir. That is
That's
correct.
funny,
Seven.
Doc. If I was any bigger, I'd be twins.
That's correct. Hey, same here. Same here. I'm like a scale model of a real person, of a real man, so that's all right.
I just fed you a line straight out of Tombstone, and you didn't even take it. I said, Doc, how the hell are you? I was waiting for the Wyatt. I am
Wyatt,
rolling.
I
but
am
you,
rolling.
you
Oh.
missed it.
Best movie ever.
Hell
Best movie
yeah.
ever. So what
I've got
trouble
several
y'all
people
getting
wanting to
into
know
tonight?
what you're drinking tonight.
I am drinking one of the most delicious libations there is, Bullet Bourbon.
Very nice.
Bourbon.
Bullet Bourbon. Really
I've
good
got
whiskey.
some Maker's Mark bourbon over here on the side I might have to partake of here before very long.
Another fine bit of brown water. I agree. Yeah,
I'm going to stick with my coffee, guys.
I recently just tried the Bullet 10-year, and that's really, really smooth. Really smooth.
I haven't tried the Bullet. I need to try that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, good stuff. Especially if you're drinking out of a glass with a bullet in it.
There you go. That's even better. I need one of them.
So, what kind of trouble y'all getting into? Telling ghost stories?
Yeah, telling creepy
you got
stories
one
for
for us?
Halloween.
Yeah, I got a cheers, Stephen. I saw your question earlier, man. I didn't want to interrupt Mark. Yeah, I've got a few. Growing up in Mississippi, that was, it's steeped in folklore and history and everything like that. But I really didn't experience anything until my first duty station up in Northeast Mississippi. I was stationed at Columbus Air Force Base when I was just started out in the Air Force, working in the emergency room. And the hospital had been built back in the 40s. It was a Strategic Air Command hospital. And we had, and I remember I'd hear things here and there. And, it was, I ended up working nights in the emergency room, which was interesting. And then we'd shut down at 10 o'clock because we switched over to the acute care clinic, and I'd be one of the only dudes down there in the whole bottom floor of the hospital. And there might only be like literally 3 people in the entire hospital, unless there was patients, which was rare. And all kinds of weird stuff happened. Call lights would freaking go off in rooms where nobody was. You'd hear toilets flushing at night. The elevators and going up and down. And I remember one time I said, "Oh, well, those things are on timers." And I walked by one of the guys repairing them one day. I'd gone in for a meeting, and I said, "Man, these things are really weird. They go up and down the elevator, up and down all night. Are they on timers?" He said, "Nope, no timers. You gotta mash the button to activate this thing to make it go up and down." So they were going up and down. We had some voice phenomena. You'd smell things. Like this one particular spirit that was there. He smoked cigarettes along the back stairwell, and of course, during that time, no smoking was allowed. And you could tell when he was around because you'd smell cigarette smoke really, really, really pungent. Really pungent. I've had equipment go off, defibrillator packs start charging up on their own. So all kinds of weird stuff. But one of the most memorable and recent ones was concerning me and Angie, my sweet little bride. And so it was right before she and I got married. So it's just been a few years ago. And we were staying in, we were in her aunt's old house. And that was where she had taken care of her aunt and her uncle before they passed. And her aunt had asked her to stay on so she could take care of the place for her. Well, after the passing of her aunt, you would hear footsteps because her bedroom was on the lower level, and upstairs you would hear footsteps up there. And one night she had actually called her son Cole and texted him and said it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and she's like, "Dude, you got to keep it down. Are you having a dance party up there or some kind of crap, you know?" And he texted her right back, said, "Mom, I'm at the student center at Southern, at University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg." He said, I'm at the student center studying for exams. And she's like, "Say what?" And
alrighty then.
Flipped on all the lights, you know, real quick and pulled the curtains open and looked out. And sure enough, his truck wasn't there. And she said, "I slept with the lights on the rest of the night, you know, but you hear the faucets in the kitchen would turn on. You'd hear pots and pans clatter around, things like that. So it could be some sort of residual loop stuff too, right? From previous energy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and she told me about us, and I'd heard the footsteps and creaks and groans and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I'm not too worried about that. That is what it is. But one morning we're laying there. It was about 7:30 in the morning. I know it was about 3 months before we got married. And I was laying with my back to the bedroom door, and I know for a fact it was shut. It's one of those lever type door handles, and I know for a fact it was shut. And because I'd shut it and pulled it too, I gotten up earlier, used the restroom, and come back and pulled and push. I always do that, just like when I'm inserting a AR mag. I always do a push pull on it, make sure it's locked in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know the bolt was locked, so we're laying there. And all of a sudden, we hear the lever like a cat was hitting it. Brr, brr. Well, there's nobody in the house, right? Well, it does that a couple of times, and it wakes me up. And about the time I was good and starting to get awakened and about to pee down my leg a little bit, that door flies open. I mean, like Jolnir hit it, man. Like old Thor just sucker punched that sumbitch and slapped it open. And that door is it was a light door. It bounced off of the wall. And all the hair on the back of my neck stood up. And I didn't want to look, but I was laying there like this, and my eyeballs kept pulling my head around, just making me look. And even though I didn't want to, man, I was shaking like a cat shitting razor blades. I ain't gonna lie to you. And so all I heard Angela say, sorry, Doug, it's another one of my famous sayings. All I heard Angela say, she didn't move, did not move, was dead calm, did not move. All she said was, "Carrie Davis, I told you. And I was like, "Yep, you told me." And there was nothing there, but that door was wide open and it had slammed against the wall. So that right there was more than just something residual. I said, "You know what? I think we might stay in a hotel tonight." So we stayed in a hotel a few miles down the road that night. So I was like, "Yeah," I said, "You need to sage this place, put some salt around it or something, and get in touch with our Native American ancestors and do some medicine man work on this joint." But that was not the end of it though. There was she had seen and heard things there, and heard some of her previous houses. She had some old historical houses when she was living there in Hattiesburg. But yeah, that about made me pee myself a little bit, man. That was
Wow.
That was good. I mean, it was one of the most overt things I'd ever seen. You know what I mean? It was like kind of like, "Hey, I'm right here in your face" type of thing. It's not just one of those things where you hear something, you go, "Well, that could have been something," or you see a shadow figure out of the corner of your eye or something. But it was definitely there, definitely something going on. So And it was not the last time, because after we moved out, her son was still there. He was like, Mom, he said, I got to get an apartment. He said, there's too much weird crap going on. And I'll tell y'all something else too. Like the Snapchat, my youngest daughter, Lily Beth, she's 16 now. But she had Snapchat. She still does, but she had Snapchat. It's got those face filters that'll turn your face into like a dog or a cat or some crap like that. And it says, hey, do it with a friend. And there'll be 2 face filters right there, right? Well, she was staying down in the sunken den. They had a big king size bed down there. That's where Uncle Red had stayed before he passed, because he was in a wheelchair. So he had to be on a ground level. Well, she kept saying, Dad, there's something that stands up in that door and watches me in the middle of the night, and kind of freaked her out. Well, right by that door was the entryway to the kitchen and where the breakfast table was. Well, Lily Beth is sitting there, hey, Dad, check out this new filter on Snapchat, right? And so she popped it up, and I see the color drain out of her face. And she goes, Dad. I was like, what? I took a screenshot of it real quick. It had mapped another face right behind her. She was sitting in it, dude. Gives me chills talking about it, man. It had mapped out another face right behind her, like a little framework it did, the little grid pattern or whatever. But it had mapped out another face standing right behind her where she was sitting in the chair. She said, "Yeah, we're sleeping with the lights on tonight."
That's pretty terrifying.
That's pretty terrifying right there.
We're sleeping in another county tonight.
Yeah, dude.
Area code.
Yeah, because my mom and dad's old place was up in Covenant County, just north of there. I said, "Y'all want to go stay at my mom and daddy's house tonight?" And they're like,
Yeah,
get in the car.
Let's stay up there tonight. I said, "Well, there's some weird crap happening there too, so I don't know, kind of out of the frying pan in the fire." But yeah, that was two of the most recent things that's happened. So thankfully, we're the house we live in now. We have not seen or heard or felt anything. So, but yeah, definitely some weird crap, man. Stuff that I had one dude say, "Oh, the door wasn't hung right. Door wasn't square. It just popped open. There was breeze in the house. Yada yada yada." I was like, first of all, it was on the inside, and number two, it was, I said there was nobody else in the house, so I know it wasn't somebody screwing around with us playing a joke on us.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, answers that question real quick. So weird stuff, man.
Yeah, I want to quickly say thanks to Josh Solaris Jones for the super chat. Just popping in to say hello, might be on later. Josh, just let us know. Hop on in whenever you're ready. And on the note of your story there, Doc, Carrie said, Patty Figueroa says, on that note, I'm uninstalling Snapchat. Similar things happen to me all the time.
Yeah. I mean, hey, those lenses see things we don't, man. I mean, that's a fact. So weird stuff. And there ain't nothing in this kit right here is going to help it. You know what I mean? So
that's a fact.
If I can't see it, I can't help it.
Yeah. That's just
how's the short story coming, DA?
It's going pretty good. I didn't get much done on it last night because I had to get up like stupid early this morning. We took a family trip down to Silver Dollar City, and I bought myself a new hat.
Nice. I see that. It's a nice lid, man. That's pretty sweet.
I like it.
That's pretty sweet. Miss Naomi, what you got cooking?
Oh, I'm busier than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. I'm telling you.
There you go.
But
that's busy. Like my granddad used to say, long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
Yep.
Werewolf 5674 said that'd be freaky, but a cat shitting razor blades would scare me. It's funny you say that because my mom had her own version of that. She said like a dog passing a peach pit.
Yep, my dad used to say that one too.
I had a dog eat a ball of yarn once. You shit that thing for yards.
Shit you not.
Yeah, you had to call before you go out there and poop. You go on belay. He had a propelling line. He like a dog and a spider had a baby.
We called him Yo-Yo.
Patty says, how was the food at the festival? Well, Silver Dollar City has good food, but the Harvest Festival was in effect. So that means they put pumpkin in damn near everything. And I hate pumpkin. So I was ordering off the regular menu. I wasn't eating festival food. But my wife liked it. So I guess it wasn't a total loss.
Yeah.
Did they put apple in anything?
There are some places where you can get apple in it, but for the Harvest Festival, it was all about the pumpkin for some reason.
I'm not a big pumpkin fan.
Me either. Lewis, thank you.
have-
Appreciate that. Sal
have
loves
s-
your sayings.
I have I like pumpkin, but I don't like it in my drinks, and I don't, like I like pumpkin bread, and I like a
Yeah.
good piece of pumpkin pie every now and then. But the stuff where they're putting it in your drinks and your cookies, and
No, I ain't
Going
about that.
overboard with the pumpkin.
Yeah.
I get a little crazy. I'm about to start wearing Uggs if I have more pumpkins.
You ain't wrong. Patty Figueroa says, all you had to do, Naoma, was to give the dog sugar-free gummy. Hey, where's Steve? Steve wasn't feeling good tonight, so he wasn't able to join us.
that's funny. Yeah, sugar-free gummy. If I'd known that, I probably would have.
No kidding.
Yeah, I know our dog ate chocolate one time, and I had to pour a bunch of hydrogen peroxide down his gullet, and that helped. I mean,
Yeah.
make sure you do it outside or on something you don't want ruined, but it definitely got it right back up.
Does it turn the dog into a Coke bottle full of, what are those things? Mentos?
Mentos.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it does, Naoma. I mean, he was spewing like a shook up beer can, man. He was all over the place. But yeah, I'm a fan of sweet potato more than pumpkin pie. I like sweet potato pie.
I do too. My favorite pie in the whole world is chess pie. I can eat that until I'm sick. And the apple pie. Apple's my other favorite. But
yeah, I like some chess pie too. That's good stuff.
yeah.
She's so ugly she'd make a freight train take a dirt road. Yep, I heard that many times.
I have as well.
Sadly,
Yeah.
so have I. Thank you very much.
Northwood says, time for me to call it a night here. Catch you guys tomorrow night. Hey, thank you. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Yeah.
You have a good
I'm gonna
night.
jump on. What time are you starting tomorrow night, DA?
We're starting at 9 tomorrow night.
All right.
We jumped in a little early tonight so we could get Cam on for a little bit. He's one of those goes to bed with the chickens kind of folk.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, my brothers were just texting me. Said, "Hey, what time are you going to jump on and play Call of Duty with you?" With us. So I play with my brothers every weekend in Mississippi. So
I have the game's been out for a while, but I just recently downloaded a game on Steam that's called Bigfoot, and you play as a cryptozoologist going out looking for this thing after some people have gone missing in a national park. That game is freaking terrifying.
that's cool, man.
Terrifying. We're gonna
That's
play it
cool.
tomorrow. Me and Josh and Adam and my son Noah and Matt and a couple other guys are gonna play it tomorrow night. And I get to play the Bigfoot, so I'm gonna be going around killing people. That's gonna be a hoot and a half. But I'm
gonna
telling
look
you,
for that
you
one.
play that game by yourself with that thing out in the woods. You hear the tree knocks. You'll hear it growl once in a while. And you'll hear like footsteps crunching in the snow, and you can't see anything. It is terrifying.
Any game that if you got a video game that makes you literally have a visceral reaction and jump and scares you.
Well, if
That's
you
cool.
you can hide out in your RV, and if you hide out too long in that RV, this big freaking hairy arm comes through the window trying to get you. And when
That's
that happened, I about dumped my desk chair over backwards. I was spamming the button trying to get my gun out. I'm like, come on!
Your wife's gonna be like, "Why is there 15 holes in the screen, honey?
Why do you need a new monitor? I shot that one.
Have me a desk pop in here."
Are you a peacock? Do you need to fly? Anyway.
We
Well,
digress.
gentlemen, yeah. My stomach is just turning knots on me. I think
You all right?
Hope you feel
no,
better.
it's old age. Okay, it's old age.
You ain't that old.
I'm older than anybody in this room. But no, I didn't mean
Not
to
by
cut this
much.
short. Well, at least 5 years, I think.
Well, that's not much.
Well, the older I get, the less much it is. That's for darn sure.
Ain't that the truth? I sound like a dadgum light stick when I get up out of bed every morning.
Holy
That or
cow, me too.
Old
Hell,
Rice
now,
Krispies.
why don't I glow? I sound like a snapping a light stick, but why don't I glow? What the hell's going on here?
I know. There's no
That would
glow.
at least be useful.
My
I
glow
know.
is way dimmer than it used to be.
For the amount of popping I do, you'd think I'd have a bowl of cereal sitting in front of me.
When I was a younger man, when I was single and did crazy things that, I'm glad the internet didn't exist for, we would take those Kim lights and we'd snap them and get them glowing real good, and we'd cut them open and rub it all over our faces and chase people in the dark.
Yes.
I so wish that right now I could show you my fingers without the lights on. Go this way. This finger right here, and this one here, and this one here. Move it over. They glow in the dark.
Nice.
Yeah. You want to know how creepy it is to wake up in the middle of the night and see something glowing on your chest? And I swear to God, when you try to run away from it, it comes with you. You can't get away from them.
Oh, Werewolf says, where do you get that game? Go to Steam and just Google Steam, and it's a online gaming server. You play it on your computer, and just the game is just simply called Bigfoot. Once you've downloaded Steam, and it's creepy. It is one of the creepier video games I've ever played.
Is that the one you guys are going to be playing tomorrow night?
That's the one.
Nice. That'd be awesome, man. Well, I'll definitely jump on with y'all tomorrow night, man. Naomi, I hope you get feeling better.
Yeah, me too. It's irritating more than anything, but
I hear you.
It's to the point. It's just like right now I can hear it, but in about 10 more minutes, you guys are going to hear it, and you're going to think there's a Bigfoot in my house, because it just gurgles and rumbles and turns, and it's humiliating. It really is. But old age does that to you. My mother always told me life begins at 40, and so does bursitis, arthritis, diverticulitis, and everything else that ends in itis. So, yeah.
Well,
but I was hoping Josh would pop on before I go, so that, because I'm sure he has some great paranormal stories to share with us. Patty, did you get your camera yet? Isn't she waiting for her camera?
Who?
Patty.
Oh, Patty? I don't think she's got a camera yet. Thought you said Hattie. I'm like, I don't know anybody named Hattie.
Hattie McDaniel, one of my favorite actresses.
I think I had a great aunt named Hattie, but that was a long time since I heard of somebody named Hattie.
Yeah.
Hattie McDaniel was one of my favorite actresses of all time. She played Mammy on Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Patty says she just needs to order her mic.
Oh, okay. It's the mic, not the camera. Okay. Well, things are stirring up in the naval region here, so I'm going to have to
all right.
excuse myself, gentlemen. But thanks for having a great show. It's good to talk to you tonight, Carrie. I hope we get to talk to you again tomorrow.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. Hope you get feeling better. Have a good night, Naomi.
Thank you. I'll talk to you guys.
Rest. Hope you get feeling better.
I will. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Anytime. See ya.
Yeah, Linda Thomas said, Carrie, that encounter was terrifying. Yes, it was. Yeah, so not fun at all. I told Angie, a good thing I didn't have my pistol close at hand. I'd have drawn down on empty air. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. I wanted to show you a couple pictures. We gave away one of your hats on the show one night, and it has been making the rounds.
Right on. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Well,
we were doing a giveaway that night, and we were going to give away a $5 gift card, your hat, or one from Scallywag Tactical. And the fellow that won it was Hooter Transport. He in the chat room, he's like, I want the Dark Angel hat. I want the Dark Angel hat.
Right on, my man.
I'm like, hell yeah.
Cool.
Carrie's gonna like that.
Well, as soon as those t-shirts get done, brother, I'm gonna send you some more stuff for some more care packages.
Sounds good to me.
Be some good stuff, man. Be some good stuff.
I can't wait for that new kit to come out.
Brother, me too, because sales have been kind of poopy here lately, but I think that'll throw a little lifeblood into us a little bit. So it'll be.
Well, we've been trying to send people your way as much as we could.
I appreciate it very much.
I always I tried to talk about Dark Angel at least once a show if I can.
Well, I appreciate it. We got to get us a class out there so we can hang out and break bread together, man. Go to the pizza joint.
Hell yeah! What we need to do is go down to Texas and shoot some hogs.
Man, I would love to do that.
That would be a hell of a trip.
Man, there's nothing like it, man. I went down there a few years back and did a week-long trip down there, and it was pretty freaking awesome. It was pretty fun. But those things run thick as thieves down there. So, and I didn't realize they were as cannibalistic as they were.
Oh yeah, they're nasty.
Oh man, they're horrible. They were like, if we can't get them out there, do we just leave them? They're like, yeah, if we can't go through the bushes to get them, I said, yeah, just leave them there. It ain't worth a snake bite.
Yeah.
So, because
I got told a story not too long ago, and I can't remember who it was that told me, but it happened down in Texas. An elderly lady got out of her car, and before she could get to her house, she was knocked down by a couple of them things. They ate her.
She was like 63. She was a caregiver. I think me and you might have been talking about that. She was a caregiver for these couple in their 80s, and she was getting out of her car, and between the car and the front porch of their house, a pack of wild hogs knocked her down, eviscerated her, and ate her up, man. Killed her. Better than a hammer.
Those things are nasty.
Yeah. Richie Evans said, hey, Dark Angel, how long does your gear leave the warehouse to us? When did you order it, brother? And what did you order? Because we've had a nationwide back order on hemostatic gauze because the Z-Medica people that make Quick Clot got bought out. And they moved all their stuff from Connecticut to North Carolina, and that's caused a big supply disruption to us. We usually try to get it out within 5 days, but it's just me and one other dude there. That's it. That's us. That's Dark Angel Medical. And my sister-in-law runs the phones and does messages. So there's 3 people doing it, brother. So we try to get out as quick as I can. If there's been any delay, I deeply apologize, but we're getting out as quick as we get stuff to us.
Bill Sloan says, I've seen where there are helicopter hunts available in Texas.
Yeah. They're a little bit spendy, but they're, from everything I've heard, they're fun. A buddy of mine at Magpul went on one, and he took one of the belt feds out of the armory. So he was hunting hogs with a belt fed machine gun from helicopters.
Nice.
Yeah.
That might be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, Richie, we will, if you do it next week, that's solid, brother. If we got it in stock, it should go out within 3 business days. Like I said, we try to get everything out within 5 business days to get to you. Yeah.
Folks, we just had somebody pop something nasty up in chat. I blocked it and banned it as fast as I could. But if you guys saw that pop up, I apologize. That was not intentional. We got that banned just as fast as we could.
Ain't no call for that.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, why would you go on somebody's stream and post that crap?
Some people just need smacking. Yeah,
that's totally agree.
It's still down there. It's below Cryptidville and between Bill, and it's above the helicopter hunt thing, brother.
Well, it's off the screen now, and I banned it.
Yep, good. All right.
I hit it just as fast as I could hit it. As soon as I saw it, I was like,
well,
so folks, I apologize that popped up in the chat room. Unfortunately, there was nothing I could do about it to get rid of it, but I got rid of it as fast as I could. That is not something we believe in or support in any way, shape, or form. People like that just need to go away. There is no call for that crap. There's no call for that time at any time, but especially in this day and age.
No,
I mean, you'd think somebody would be beyond that, but they are banned from the channel now, and hopefully they will never come back. So
yeah, good. They need to take a long walk off of a short pier
into shark-infested water.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Well, brother man, I hate to leave you as a Lone Ranger, but I'm about to pee on a fire and call in the dogs. It's about Yeah, my brother's been blowing my phone up, so I'm
All
gonna
right.
jump on and play with them. Thank you for having me on, brother. It's
Oh,
been a pleasure
brother, you're always
as
welcome.
as always, and I look forward to seeing your bright, smiling, shiny, happy face tomorrow night.
And my shiny forehead as well.
I think as my hairline's receded, I got a 5 head now, so it's all right.
I'm like a 6 or a 7.
Man, you have a great night, everybody. Y'all have a great night, and if y'all come on tomorrow night, y'all come on, jump on with us, have a good time, and look forward to seeing y'all.
Doc, have a good one. I'll see you tomorrow.
You all right, brother. Good night.
Well, folks, that was Kerry Pocket Doc Davis, and he's the incredible guy behind Dark Angel Medical, and he's a really good dude. I've known him for a long time. He's helped me out a lot, and he'll be back tomorrow night, and we'll get more creepy stories and get to talking about some other weird things that have happened. And again, I apologize for that. There's that person that popped up in the chat room. I'm sorry about that. I could not catch that fast enough. I mean, it popped up and I was killing it within a couple of seconds, but it was already there. And he's blocked from the channel and blocked from the chat. So hopefully we will not see the like of that crap again. And anytime something like that pops up, we are going to ban that just as fast as we can hit it. And there's just no place for that. Not in any public forum, not at all. So again, I apologize for that. I'm so mad I could spit, but I'll keep it civil there. Yeah, I'm sorry that had to pop up in the chat. It just there. And I appreciate y'all. Sal says you don't have to apologize, DA. Yeah, but I feel like I do. I mean, that there's just no call for that, and we don't. None of us put up with any of that crap, and for that to just pop up in the chat room, just kind of it's like a black eye, not only on the show but for all of us that had to see it, and people like that just really, really, really upset me, and there's just no call for it. I mean, we're here to talk about, scary stories and cryptids and monsters and stuff like that. And that's something that unites all of us. Everybody's had something weird happen to them at some point in their life, or enjoys a good monster story, or likes to talk about, good horror stories or stuff like that. And that's something that unites all of us. I mean, it doesn't matter what background you're from. Everybody's had that creepy story. They've heard ghost stories. They've had those weird stories we all told each other growing up. Before you went to bed, or on Halloween, or in any time of the year. Really, I mean, I've always loved horror stories, but it's just something that kind of unites all of us. Everybody's had that really weird something happened to them at one point that made them wonder if there was something creepy out there. So it kind of transcends all of it. I mean, it's something that we can all understand. It's something we all enjoy. It's something we all hear to talk about. And for something like that to pop up really it just aggravates me to death. And I apologize again, folks. We will do our absolute best. We've got some good moderators. We anytime like that, something like that pops up, we are gonna block it and ban it and hit it just as fast as we can to get it out of there. And hopefully whoever the heck that is, they can go to the hot place and leave us the hell alone. Richie says small-minded person he or she is, so we should feel bad for them. Sal says we all love it here. No worries, DA. Thank you. Mark Napier says they're just trying to start some crap. Best to just ignore them. That's why I dropped the ban hammer on them the moment I had the chance. Patty, thank you. She says, DA, you didn't type it. It's not a reflection of them on them, not you. And I appreciate that, folks. I really do. I hate to end the show on a negative note like that, but me being here by myself, I'm sure everybody get tired of hearing me talk after a little bit, I'm sure. Kerry is going to be sending me a care package, like he was saying. He's sending me multiple sizes. of Dark Angel t-shirts. He's sending me a bunch of hats, some stickers, some of his patches. The Dark Angel patches are really awesome. I've got one right here. I'll show y'all. All the time I had patches on my backpack and stuff. This one was the only one that ever got stolen, and he's got these in multiple colors. So he's going to be sending some of those. He's going to send us some hats and stickers and stuff, and we'll be giving those away in the future. I was hoping Josh would jump in, so I wouldn't be the Lone Ranger up here. I guess the hat's appropriate for it now. Lean in and thank you. Marshall says don't end the show. Well, I can keep right on going if y'all want. I can tell a few creepy stories from my neck of the woods and see if Josh shows up. Trying to think. I know there's a bunch of them. We went camping one time, and me and a bunch of my friends down a little place called Moon Valley. And Moon Valley it's pretty far off the beaten path. If you can find Bennett Springs on the map, you can find Moon Valley, but you're going to go several miles down all gravel roads. It is in the middle of nowhere. Had a question there real quick. It says, question today, does Dark Angel have different levels of gear? Yes, they do. They've got everything from your basic first aid kits, which is something they call an ouch pouch, to personal trauma kits that you carry that have your basic gauze, quick clot, things like that, a tourniquet, to full-blown trauma kits for treating like collapsed lungs, sucking chest wound. They've got some fantastic kits. Greg Price says your ugly mug is creepy enough. Well, you're not wrong. But yeah, check out darkangelmedical.com and check out all the different kits. And they've got even vehicle kits that are for multiple traumas. So yeah, Dark Angel's got kits for all kinds of events and different levels of trauma. So yeah, definitely check them out and tell Carrie we sent you. Dark Angel's been hit pretty much like everybody else during this the Black Plague of the 21st century. So they if y'all send your business their way, they would certainly appreciate it. Robert Miller says, "What's up, Lone Ranger? Like you got room to talk. You wear more black cowboy hats than I do, feller." That's funny. I don't care who you are. That's funny. But anyway, a bunch of us went camping in a little place called Moon Valley. And it's on the Dallas County side of Bennett Springs. But I grew up in Laclede County, and they're both pretty rural. I mean, Lebanon is like the biggest city in Laclede County, and it dwarfs the biggest city in Dallas County. So Dallas County is a little bit more rural than Laclede, but Moon Valley's off the beaten path. It's in the middle of nowhere. And the only way to get to it is by traveling these gravel roads. There's no paved road that leads to it. You leave the pavement several miles before you get to Moon Valley. And it's a really, really neat little place. I mean, it's a pretty valley, but it kind of takes on a different feeling at night. So we were camping down there, and in Missouri, there's not any really big like elk or moose. There are elk now. They introduced elk into southern Missouri about 15 years ago, and the population's really exploded. But back in the mid 80s, when we went camping down there, there were no elk in Missouri. So there were no big ungulates there. The biggest huntable animal was the deer. And they're not horribly big, and they're not active at night. They tend to bed down for the night. Well, we're camping along the shores of the Niagara River, and just a bunch of idiots hanging out, having a good time. And once we all started going to bed that night, we heard something splash into the river, which is not uncommon. I mean, fish jump out of the water and stuff. But we didn't think too much of it. Well, just a few minutes later, we hear something sounds like it's coming up the bank, just down from our camp. But we had a good fire going, so we didn't think too much of it. Thought maybe, someone was down there fishing, was crawling up the bank. Well, for the next 2 to 3 hours, we could hear it stomping in the grass, walking around our camp. It made a circle around our camp for like the next 3-4 hours. And we went down there to fish, and and the only thing we took for any kind of game was a 22. In case we shot a squirrel or a rabbit. We weren't down there to hunt. We were down there to fish and camp. But so with armed with a Ruger 1022, I wasn't about to stick my head out of that tent. And pretty much everybody else was in the same boat. They're like, no, we're not going out there. We don't know what the hell that is. It sounds big. Well, we stayed in the tent until we couldn't take it anymore, and finally we all rushed out at the same time. And once we got out to the fire, which was pretty much down to coals by that point, we couldn't hear anything. There were no night sounds, no crickets, no nothing. So we built up the fire with all the wood we'd gathered, and we sat by that fire the rest of the night. Kept wood fed into that fire. About an hour later, the night sounds returned, but we never did hear it again. We didn't hear it leave. We didn't hear it approach any closer to camp. And when sun came up, we found in the thick grass around the camp where something had been walking around the camp, but there were no clear tracks because the ground was solid. But that was the last time we camped in Moon Valley. But I've been down there many times, going fishing and hanging out, going down swimming in the Niagara River, but I haven't camped back down there. And I've got the distinct feeling that something didn't want us in that valley, and we listened. We didn't go back. Oh, try to catch up on the chats. James Fadekey, howdy everyone. Thank you for joining us, sir. That's Nightbot saying support the channel and get a book insider information. Join the Patreon. Thank you very much, Nightbot. Cryptidville says that does possibly sound like a Bigfoot. Again, we never saw it, but it terrified the crap out of the four of us. Marshall says sounds like a Bigfoot to him. I pretty much I was convinced that's what it was, but we never saw it, and none of us were brave enough to go after it. And I'm kind of glad we didn't. Greg says Lone Ranger wore a white hat. Yeah, this is a black hat. Mark Napier says, I bet it's the last time you took just a 22. Yeah, from then on I took a 12 gauge. Didn't matter whether we were planning to spend the night or not. I took a 12 gauge. The Ozarks are a pretty creepy place. I mean, yeah, if y'all ever have a chance to come into the Ozarks, there are just a lot of really, really creepy places here. I mean, there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of really interesting things that have happened here. There were several Civil War battles that were fought within an hour or so of where I live. The big one being Wilson's Creek, which was one of the early battles. But it was a pretty bloody battle, and people report hauntings out there all the time. In fact, a friend of mine used to work out there as a volunteer, and he took a picture where you can clearly see somebody in Civil War dress standing in the background behind a cannon, and he never saw it. And he never saw it until years later. He's looking at old photos. He's like, "Holy crap!" James says, I'll call in and tell my story of a 6-foot plus owl that tried to attack me in 2007, a small patch of woods in Indiana, if there's a call-in number. We don't have a call-in number, but I could send you the link. But how about we save that one for tomorrow night? We're coming up. Well, actually, we're past the 3-hour mark. It's probably a good time to start wrapping things up for the night, especially since Josh has never made it. So we'll go ahead and start wrapping things up. But James, I'll be more than happy to have you come on tomorrow night with us when we're telling more scary stories. Tonight was just kind of an impromptu thing. I was talking to Naoma, and we posted the question to Cam Buckner and said, "Hey, what if we throw a show together, just kind of as a surprise thing, and you want to come on and tell a few scary stories?" And Cam was on board, so we put one together quickly. And I'm glad we did. It was a good night, and despite that idiot that showed up in the chat room, and again I apologize for that. Our mods will be all over that guy if he shows up again. Well, of course he's banned, so he'll have to show up under another name. But hopefully that'll be the end of it, though. Linda Thomas says, "What platform is that game on?" It's called Steam. You can just Google it. Like, I think it's steam.com, I believe. But the game's called Bigfoot. And you can find me on there at DA Roberts Author. I'll be on there. That's my handle on there as well, because I use that on all my social media. So if you find me online, you guys want to play Bigfoot, I'd be more than happy to jump into a game with you. Oh, we got a whole bunch of chats that I missed. Marshall says, what about the tracks by the bank? I didn't see any. Where it came up was like a pretty steep side, and there was just loose rocks and grass. So we couldn't find any tracks. And it'd been a while since it rained in that. It rained down there, so the ground was pretty hard packed. So we didn't see any tracks. Lenita says she's calling in tonight. James says, I'll call in. Oh, that's we already got that one. Oh yeah, I was already asking those over again. Lewis says have a happy Halloween. Well, folks, I appreciate y'all being here, and again, I apologize for the idiot in the chat room, and thank you guys for joining us tonight. Like I said, it was just one of those, we just didn't plan on doing it until the last minute, and kind of threw it together kind of as a surprise trick or treat kind of thing. But the big Halloween show will be tomorrow night. We'll be telling a lot more creepy stories, and I'll have some for you, and maybe I might read a little sample of the of one of the new books, or maybe the story, that dog soldier story. Maybe I might do a little bit of that. But appreciate you guys being here, and I appreciate all of y'all in the chat room. You guys are awesome. I really enjoy hanging out and talking with y'all. And thank you guys for being here. And I hope you guys have an amazing night and happy Halloween. And I hope you'll be joining us tomorrow night as we jump back into more crazy, creepy monster stories and cryptid stories and everything that goes bump in the night. So thank you guys very much for being here. And you guys are the best. And I've said it many times. These stories are journeys that we take together. And I appreciate you all for taking the journey with me. You guys are awesome. And I hope you have a wonderful night. And we will see you all tomorrow night. Y'all have a great night. And I will tip my bald hat to y'all. You guys have a great night.
Thank you for joining us tonight on DAX Machina. If you ever have an encounter of your own that you wish to discuss, contact us at daroberts@daroberts.net. You can remain completely anonymous if you wish. Pull your covers up tight and keep a nightlight burning bright. Oh, and did you forget to lock your doors?